Am I the a-hole for not offering to care for my unwell ex-husband? I, 56F, have been married to my wife, Angela, 56F, for a year, and we're planning our first anniversary celebration with a trip overseas. I was very excited to spend this time with my wife, but unfortunately, my ex-husband, Dan, 58M, his recent hospitalization is putting a damper on my plans. Backstory: I met Dan in college and we got married shortly after graduating when we found out that I was pregnant. At the time, I felt like it was the right thing to do, but looking back, it was a bad idea. I resented having to put my career aspirations on hold in order to be the full-time caregiver, and Dan resented having to be the main financial provider. However, this did not stop him from constantly bringing it up whenever I asked him to help with the kids or the home, and he also never defended me when his mother would stop by unannounced and the household wasn't up to the Queen's standard. And I felt so exhausted and trapped, and if it weren't for my kids, Junior, 34, and Sarah, 32F, Michelle, 29F, and Mike, 29M, I would have left years ago. Unfortunately, Dan did not have the same values as me, and blindsided me with divorce papers. It was a rough process, but after the first year of our divorce being finalized, I got my groove back, and within the next 4 years, I was able to get a nice apartment and a good career. Now onto the present day. A couple of weeks ago, Dan was rushed to the hospital, and while the doctors were able to save him, his health took a turn for the worse. His wife is now essentially working to provide for their kids, while her parents watch them to save on daycare. I learned all of this through my children, as I do not care to have any direct contact with Dan, but almost every time I talk to them, they always bring up how stressed and tired they are having to look after their father. I thought I was just being a sympathetic ear, but a couple of days ago, my children came together to confront me about my lack of willingness to offer assistance to their father, and as their mother, I should want to care for him to make their own lives easier. My children know that while I have a full-time job, I can make up my own hours, and they want me to come into his house at least twice a week to make sure he's clean and fed, or pay for a nurse to come do it. I refused, stating that Dan and I had been divorced for years, and that their stepmom can handle that. That's when they told me that she didn't care about their dad like they do, and is most likely hoping for him to pass on so she can collect on his insurance policy as the legal wife. My daughter Sarah then began to cry and asked me if I cared whether or not she had a dad anymore, while Junior and Mike thought I was being bitter. Michelle asked me to put them first and said that I can reschedule my anniversary trip with Angela. And my former in-laws are also calling me to say that I need to do this and I'd be a horrible mom. So, am I the a-hole? Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "Turn this completely around and ask your children how long are you supposed to put your life on hold, and you are never allowed to be happy and live your life. Tell your children that between the 4 of them and the ex-in-laws, they can split the costs of a hired nurse/healthcare professional/domestic aid to go to your father's house twice in a week. Why should you pay for his care? You don't have the mental bandwidth and strength to be their father's carer, and it's really manipulative and cruel of them to emotionally coerce you to become your ex's carer." Dan's parents are retired and rely on him to pay their bills. I'm told that Dan's wife freaked out at the mention of having his parents move in to help save money, and his mom's mobility isn't great, so it's not like she can do all the cooking and cleaning. Then user 2 commented and said, "Absolutely not your job to pay for that either. If he's that bad off, I was thinking hospice or some equivalent, which usually isn't a cost to the family. Such a crappy situation everyone is putting you in." We are Americans, and our healthcare system is terrible. Worse if you don't have money. I was told that since my ex made too much money in the past 4 years, he doesn't qualify for assistance. Then OP elaborated on the ex-in-laws and said, "My ex-in-laws think that I baby-trapped their precious baby boy because I didn't want to work. So they were happy when he left me, felt as if he deserved better, and accused one of my children of not being his because they didn't look enough like him." Then user 3 commented and said, "Not the a-hole. A whole lot of adults thinking they get to decide how you spend your time and money. Sounds like you have a very entitled family." To be fair, I used to have a people-pleasing type of mentality because that's how I was raised, and it's taken a lot of time and therapy to be assertive and be consistently firm when setting my boundaries. Then user 4 commented and said, "Why are they expecting more from you than his actual wife?" My children have told me in the past that they've talked to her about this and she just lashes out at them, saying she's too busy with her new job and being the only parent to her kids. It got to the point where she temporarily banned my children from entering the home for a few days until they apologized to her.
And finally, user 5 said, "Not the a-hole. If I were to guess, I'd say your in-laws are pressuring your kids, saying that their father's wife doesn't care for him and whatnot. Also, what actual evidence do your children have that his wife isn't caring for him properly? Maybe her care isn't up to the queen's standards, as you say."
From what I've been told, she moved him from out of their shared bed, doesn't help him with his medication, takes the food to his room but won't cut it up into small pieces so it's easier for him to eat, and leaves it on the other side of the room to motivate him to move. She doesn't take him to his appointments, and unless my children, usually my daughters, come by, he's not kept very clean. Update: 2.5 months later. I forgot about the password to this account and my stepdaughter showed me what to do, and once I assessed this, I saw that I got a few messages from people asking for an update, so I thought I would share. First, a few people seemed to be confused, so let me be clear. I am a woman who is married to another woman. My own parents passed away years ago, so their opinion is irrelevant. And my wife and I both have children from previous relationships, but we didn't meet until after our children were adults. So my wife and I are the only ones who have lived together. Now on to what almost everyone cares about the most. I went on a cruise! It was great, and my wife and I had a really great time. My children were predictably unhappy, and I'm sure that my temporary blocking of them didn't make it any better. Most of my children kept calling and telling me that I was selfish and an awful woman for choosing to go on the vacation instead of being there for the family. But, like many of you have stated, I reminded them that their father divorced me, and therefore my obligations to him have ended. If it were any of them that had a medical need, I would cancel without question, but I would not for their father. I thought I could leave it at that, but because they kept calling and texting me the first 3 days of the trip, that's when I decided to block them. Unfortunately, my ex's health took a turn for the worse, and he had to go back to the hospital, and his lack of proper care triggered an investigation. I didn't know any of this until I unblocked my kids the day I got back, and some of them blamed me. I've come to the conclusion that they're all just mad at the situation, and I'm a convenient villain. I've accepted this because I can understand the fear and anger of facing the idea of losing a parent that you love, and I just hope that one day we can all sit down with a family therapist and mediate the situation. However, this did start to trigger my past tendencies of sacrificing my own happiness and well-being for my children, but my wife, therapist, and even a small piece of my inner self had to remind me that my children are adults and that my ex isn't my responsibility. I tried to reach out, and so far most of my children aren't talking to me, and have made it very clear that I will not be able to see my grandchildren as punishment. It's sad, and I'm still wrestling with the guilt and doubt, but my wife and stepchildren are being very supportive, while my other family is a mix, and most of my friends are neutral.
Then in the comments section, OP elaborated on the neutral friends comment and said,
"My friends are neutral in the sense that they don't think it's their business and won't bring it up unless I do. If they do think I should help, they've never explicitly said anything to me directly."
Then in the comments section, one user said, "OP wrote that the lack of care for her ex-husband triggered an investigation. Was a lack of proper care suspected in the hospital, or did the nurses and doctors say that the ex hadn't properly had care at home?"
I don't know all the details, and my kids didn't say, and I didn't ask. But apparently instead of getting better, he's getting worse, because all of the doctor's orders aren't being followed.
Then user 2 commented and said, "Girl, them kids are a-holes."
I honestly think it's partially my fault because I raised to believe that mothers should constantly sacrifice for their kids no matter what. So that's what I did, and it's what they expect.
Then OP elaborated on why the kids aren't helping and said,
"To be fair, they were helping out in the beginning, but they've had to take time away from work and their own families to help their father, and the pressure is starting to get to them. I live closer and have much more free time than they do, and I did raise them with the expectation that I would always sacrifice for them when they were growing up."
And finally, OP elaborated on what caring for him would have meant and said,
"Not just check in on him, but actually take care of him, feed him, wash him, give him his medicines at the appropriate times, help him with his exercises, etc. It would practically be a full-time job, and they wanted me to do it nearly every day, as if I don't have a job of my own." So we've gotten a few stories like this recently where it's almost typically the mother. Something happens to the dad, and the dad usually in these stories leaves or cheats on OP, the wife, and then gets a new wife or something. Then something happens,
And then the kids come in and they're like, hey, mom, you need to go tend to dad, even though, there's all these prior problems and you guys aren't even together anymore. We've had a few stories like this recently, and a few of those times the moms don't we don't hear of the mom making any retorts or comebacks, or there's not much elaboration, but we got it for this story and I'm glad. And she made the fair point. He divorced me. I'm not in love with the guy anymore. He's not my responsibility. He's not my family. That's your dad. Why aren't you helping? And I think the OP did make a fair point that, she raised the kids to be that way, thinking like mom would always do that, always do this for us, for dad, for the family. But that's not her family anymore. She's got her own job. It's 4 kids. Y'all can't do a couple days a week or something split up. 4 kids? Can't band together monetarily and get a nurse or an aide? I think also the new wife sounds horrible, but I don't know. These kids sound entitled, and I think understandably so, OP may have put them in there, giving them that mindset, but just black and white, they're entitled to think that mom should care for her ex-husband. Anyway, next story. Story number 2. Am I the a-hole for wearing an over-the-top outfit to my friend's birthday party and overshadowing the host? Before I begin, English is not my first language, so apologies for typos, bad grammar, and punctuation. I'm also on mobile and using a throwaway just in case. So, last Friday night, my 24M friend, we'll call him Peter, celebrated his 28th birthday. His coworker, who we will refer to as April, offered to organize and host the party. The dress code was, as she put it, your gothic best, and Peter loves anything morbid and macabre, so it would fit his taste perfectly. Now, I prioritize comfort over looks, which leaves me dressing mostly in scrubs at work or sweats and hoodies when I'm out and about. Hence, April decided to remind me multiple times in increasingly condescending tones to follow the dress code. So, I did just that. I wore a black velvet trouser and waistcoat set with a white 18th century men's shirt, a pirate shirt, if you will, and all of these items I made completely myself. From drafting the patterns to sewing the shirt completely by hand and adding an embroidery moth across the back of the waistcoat. Now, on to the party itself. I ended up arriving later than most people due to being held up at work longer than expected. I warned both Peter and April about it. Peter said it was no problem at all, but I better show up, and April left me on red. So, I arrived 40 minutes late, greeted April, congratulated Peter, and gave him his gift. Mocktails were drank and pleasantries were exchanged. Over the course of the night, I got a lot of compliments on my outfit, and my craft skills were a topic of conversations several times over the evening. It also didn't really help that when someone asked me where I got the suit or shirt from, Peter would loudly tell them all about how I made everything myself. I remember being spun around a couple of times so people could look/touch the embroidery in the back, and everyone had a good time, or so I thought. Over the weekend, April and her friends ended up bombarding my phone and any social media that they could find with absolutely nasty messages. How I was an attention seeker, how desperate I came across, how I absolutely ruined the party that April had been planning for weeks. How dare I steal attention away from her and overshadow Peter and April? You get the idea. I feel like I'm going a bit insane. Overshadowing anybody was never my intention, especially my friend at his own party, and I don't think I did that. But all of these comments are making me rethink my choices. So, am I the a-hole here? I really need some outside perspective. Then, in the comments section, one user said that Peter is behind this, to which OP replied and said, I doubt that's the case. I've known the guy for 10 plus years, and he never had a problem with people overshadowing him. He is not insecure, and if he's got a problem with someone's actions, he will say it. He wouldn't send his co-workers' girlfriends to harass a person on his behalf. Then one user commented and said, not the a-hole. April has a thing for Peter and sees you as a threat. She's going to find ways to criticize you and tear you down no matter what you do. I guess it also didn't help that Peter kept his hand on my back for most of the evening, and when he got absolutely wasted, put his face in my hair. Then user 2 commented and said, so maybe it's not just April's imagination that you are a threat to her attempts to connect with Peter. I think the biggest threat is Peter being aro/asexual, and the way April behaves, not me. Then user 3 commented and said, could he possibly be demi-romantic? Because Peter's behavior that you're describing is a little bit more than platonic. Keeping his arm around you, smelling your hair, those are often actions, though not exclusively of course, exhibited by people towards a paramour or crush of some degree. And yes, April is the problem. According to him, he is aro/asexual, and he wasn't smelling my hair, more like rubbing his face on the top of my head. He says it's because he likes how my hair feels. He plays with my hair often enough, and when he gets a little too drunk, he face plants into it. Though he did it mostly back when we were in university, and knowing him, it could just be a texture thing. Then OP OP elaborated on others liking the outfit and said, "At some point, I ended up with like 4 very drunk people rubbing the moth's body. I made it from faux fur, and by extension my back with their fingers. It was a weird experience, to say the least." And finally, OP elaborated on the outfit and said, "I had help when it came to drafting the suit from someone who actually knows what they're doing. The shirt was made from a bunch of squares, so no problems there, and the embroidery is all split stitches, and faux fur for the body of the moth. I really made it sound to be so much more impressive than it is." Update. This morning showed Peter the post and all of the messages from April and company, and never heard him be this angry. He said he will deal with them. It turns out April is a pathological liar and has been telling everyone in the office that Peter and her are in a relationship, but are keeping it low-key. She was also taking pictures of him every time she walked by his office and showing them to her friends as proof. So her friends thought that I was trying to steal her man. And they aren't even co-workers. She just greets clients at the front desk at the firm that Peter works at. Anyway, Peter ripped her a new one. Their boss, April's uncle, ripped her a new one. And the coworker that she lied to ripped her a new one. April ended up throwing a tantrum, and the police were called. The results? April is currently on a 48-hour hold, and Peter is moving to work from home full-time, and I got apologies from April's uncle, mom, and a few friends and coworkers. So I feel like I don't need to tell you that April's crazy because she's on a 48-hour hold, and is a pathological liar, and is pretending to be in a relationship with someone who is aro/asexual, or ace, as you say on the internet. I don't know what aro is. I've never heard that term before. But, I don't really know how that's going to work out for her. I mean, you can be in relationships with asexual people, but I just feel like on top of the pathological liar and the craziness part, I don't feel like it was going to work out for you, April. I'm going to just be real with you. I'm sorry, but you're insane. Story number 3. My former doctor published a book including anecdotes from my life. I saw this doctor for 3 years for mental health concerns, and they never diagnosed me, citing that they don't believe in diagnosing. They believe in treating their patients. I switched to another doctor and was diagnosed, and I am doing well. Then my former doctor went on to publish a book which included anecdotes from our sessions, which I believed to be private. They do not include anything that someone in, say, California can track me down by, but my significant other knew I saw this doctor in the past and was able to figure out it was me from what they wrote. I honestly just feel violated, and I'm not sure if I can do anything. The book is published, and it's not like I can ask them to please not include me, right? Is there anything I can do here? I just feel like they should have asked for my consent before publishing or something. Thank you for your time. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "It depends on how de-identified the information is. That they didn't diagnose you is irrelevant." Sorry, I was explaining why I left their practice. It included past abuse I've faced from parents and in childhood, and some details from an abusive relationship I was in for a few years. Anyone close to me who knows I saw this doctor would know it was me, and there are some people who may be able to figure out who I am from one particular detail. Specifically, I am worried my ex, if he ever found this book, could possibly figure out what country I currently live in. And then user 2 commented and said, "Unsure if directly contacting the psychiatrist is a good idea. Others who know more can help." I wasn't sure either. That's why I asked. It's already out there. If I'd found out before it was published, I could have said no or asked her to alter a detail or two. Then OP made a small update in the comments section and said, "Hi there. I wanted to thank everyone who took the time to read and comment. I haven't decided exactly what to do at this point. I was decided up until people got into my head that I will draw more attention to it, and I'm still upset by this, and will probably contact the doctor once I've cooled down. I'm still very angry, and my partner knows a type of abuse that I was subject to that I wasn't ready to talk to them about yet. But thank you everyone who took time to give advice. Reading it makes me feel a lot better, and I thought I was overreacting, and this has been very validating." And finally, user 3 commented and said, "How would you know the doctor didn't have a diagnosis if they were keeping it a secret from the patient?" Hi there. She did diagnose me. She made the choice not to tell me my diagnosis because she was afraid a life sentence to being sick might make me spiral. She wasn't wrong at first, but by the time I left, I had figured out what was wrong myself. I harbor some resentment there, but it doesn't seem relevant to the book situation other than explaining why I chose to leave the practice, since she was otherwise very helpful. That being said, I chose to reply to this comment to publicly announce it should not have been my doctor's choice. I asked her multiple times. Since learning what I have and understanding my symptoms, I have improved vastly. I know what to look for, and I understand that I'm not just a colossal failure now, and that I have a genuine chemical imbalance, and my brain chemistry was probably changed from a young age due to my childhood. In other words, I feel in control now. I feel empowered. Before, I felt completely out of control because I did not understand what was happening to me. I don't hate her, but it was the wrong approach for me, and it's something I get touchy about. Solving the mystery gave me back a life. Not the life I expected, but it's still miles better than the hell I was living in. Update. I called the doctor and she said I signed something my very first appointment giving permission for her to do it. I am upset by that. Even if I did sign, I spent my first session crying and begging for help so I wouldn't hurt myself. It was the wrong time for me to be agreeing to anything, and frankly, if I'd been in the right state of mind, I would have never signed it and would have left and found someone new. I didn't ask to see it. I just want to wipe my hands of this. My SO dumped me over something he learned about in the book because my baggage was just too much. I just want to move on with my life. Anyone who asks now that it's out there, I'm just saying it's my private business and to drop it. Anyone who doesn't does not deserve a place in my life anymore. I bumped my therapy up to twice a week for a bit, and thank you to everyone who gave advice. And biggest thing to take away, read everything I sign. This was my own fault. Then OP elaborated in the comments section and said, "Hi there, I'm getting a lot of PMs, so here I am. I'm done. I can't handle anything anymore. I lost the guy I thought I might marry. He's making my life a living hell telling all my friends that it was me. People are picking up her book just to gawk at my sordid history. I'm being made fun of that I still wet the bed well into my 20s. I'm done. I don't ever want to think about this again. It's just dragging me down to a place I can't let myself be in anymore. And I'm sorry that's not what people want to hear, but I can't bear this anymore. Maybe one day when I'm in a better place, I'll look into it. But for now, I need this to be over. Thank you, everyone." Edit. I'm such a wreck, it took me until 1 a.m. to fully even read this thread. I can't handle trying any sort of legal battle right now. I had to get drunk to even call her. But I'm reading everything and saving everything relevant just in case. I'm not saying I'm not going to look into doing anything. I hate what she did. I just can't right now. I'm sorry that's not what I should be doing here. And finally, one user commented and said, "It's unfortunate, but at the same time, her partner at the time showed their true colors. It sucks, but long term, it's better for OP." As far as I'm concerned, my XSO can go F themselves. Facebook blocked, Jim the hit, and I can't remember the last part of the saying, but he can go screw himself. Update number 2. I had to provide a doctor's note for missing a week of work, and my boss looked up the doctor online and keeps telling my coworkers to be gentle with OP, she's unstable, and that she is delicate, please be careful with her. She has directly told 2 of them that I missed work because I am mentally fragile and that I see a doctor for it. I know she meant well, but I feel so violated. And my coworkers don't know I'm seeing someone for my mental health, and now they do. There is no HR at my place of employment. And is there anything I can do other than look for a new job? I haven't had the chance to bring this up to my doctor, but I will at my next appointment. Thank you for your time. Edit. Being violated in this regard is becoming the standard for me. I posted a while back about my old doctor writing a book with my stories in it, if anyone cares, but I did get her fired, and I'll let her know why I'm leaving when I do, if the owner can't do anything for me, and maybe he will transfer me to another location. Then in the comments section, one user said, "Oh wow, I remember your post. You can't win for losing on your mental health staying quiet. I'm so sorry, OP. Hang in there." You know, I had to freaking move over that. I'm still pissed. They fired her and offered me a year of free therapy with someone else. Yeah, no. Then OP replied to a deleted comment and said, "It isn't worth putting a label on myself. People just don't take you seriously anymore once they know you're crazy. Especially in a professional environment. It is, excuse my French, none of their effing business, no matter how much they want it to be. I've been crazy my whole life. It sucks when people find out and just don't treat you the same way. A depressive episode is, in my opinion, worse to deal with, personally, than when I was bedbound with the flu and bronchitis for 2 weeks. Yet, no one treats you the same way when they know you were home depressed instead of sick." Update. 8 months later. I can't get into the details for privacy reasons, but I'm definitely hammered and celebrating, and remember that I posted here. As a reminder of my last post, my doctor included anecdotes from our sessions in her book. My now ex-boyfriend knew she was the one I had been seeing, so he picked up a copy of her book and started spreading details of my past to our mutual friends after reading it. I ended up having to move to get away from all of their drama. Well, she was arrested and charged with an unrelated crime, and if she ever practices again after this charge, I don't know the right term, I'm going to be shocked. I never asked for copies of the papers I signed, which I'm sure I'll get judged for. As far as I'm concerned, though, it's over. She's being punished, even if for something else, and I live somewhere my ex won't ever find me. I'm just happy, and I wanted to share. So I would say it's a good, happy ending, I guess. It's kind of messy and horrible. Like, OP seems to have gone through tremendous amounts of trauma and just, mental health issues, and the first doctor was like, no, I don't want to tell you what it is. Like, I can see what you mean, not wanting, the person to go spiraling knowing that they're going to have mental health problems their whole life. But if you don't understand it, you can't control it. You can't get ahead of it. You can't, I don't want to say beat it, but control it and keep it under wraps. But you know what? OP got the doc fired. And now the doc probably won't practice again, and we can all forget about the doctor's book, which, let's be honest, I'm not going to read. I've never heard of it. I don't even know how to read. Do you think I want to pick up a book about medical terms? Those words are so scary and confusing and long and stupid. And then it's like, yeah, you got a cold or something. Make medical terms make sense. God, I'm sorry, I don't know where that came from. Medical terms are dumb, I feel like. But anyway, good for OP. She seems to be in a better place just from the way she's describing things, and she literally said she's happy, so I guess that's what you can hope for. Anyway, next story. Story number 4. My daughter just contacted me after 17 years, asking me if I want to meet my granddaughter. Am I the a-hole for telling her that I don't care about her or her daughter and to never contact me again? I am not sure if I am an a-hole here, and I'm going to provide some background. I am in my 60s now, and I was married to my ex-wife, and we had a daughter. Our marriage was going through its ups and downs, but I was really close with our daughter. But as our marriage was going through its difficulties, I made a huge mistake I still regret to this day. I started having an affair with my coworker. She was in a violent, physically abusive relationship at home, and we became friends at work, and things just escalated from there. She got an out from me, and she got the support she needed to file for divorce from her husband, who is currently in jail now. The affair went nowhere, and we called it off shortly after, but I was glad that she got out of her abusive relationship and that she was safe. But when my ex found out about the affair, things didn't go well. She lashed out and said a lot of horrible things about me to our daughter, who was 15 at the time. I admitted full fault with the affair, but even after the divorce, I sensed that the distance between me and my daughter was growing, until one day, my daughter said she wasn't going to speak with me anymore, and she was going to cut me off from her life forever. That was the most painful thing anyone had ever said to me, and I begged her to please reconsider, and I still remember that day. But time passed on. My daughter kept her word, and after trying to connect with her for the first year, I gave up. I found out from one of my mutual friends that my ex-wife married a great guy, and I was happy because I was hoping that would remove the hatred for my ex-wife, and my ex-wife would advise our daughter to at least rekindle a relationship with me. But that never happened. I moved states a year later. I'm at peace now, but I still have some aching sadness. And I have retired. Both my parents have passed away. My brother passed away tragically a couple of years ago. And to be honest, I'm waiting for my turn. I only have my dog and my sister left. A couple of years ago, my daughter called me on the phone, and I haven't spoken to her in 17 years. I instantly recognized her voice, but I didn't feel anything. No happiness, no sadness, just indifference. She was crying a lot on the call, and we caught up in life. She's married and she has a daughter who's now 12. She apologized for cutting off contact, and she says her mom asked her to reconnect with me, as her mom felt guilty about how everything played out. She said she really wanted to meet her daughter, and her daughter was constantly asking about her granddaddy. But I wasn't feeling anything. After we caught up on everything in our life, I told her I don't care about her or her daughter, and to never contact me again. And then I hung up. So, was I the a-hole? Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "This is one of the most obvious you are the a-hole posts I've ever seen here. Good effing lord." Then user 2 said, "It's already been said, but you are definitely the a-hole." And finally, user 3 commented and said, "You are the a-hole. I hate when adults make very bad decisions that affect their children and then blame the children when they respond in a very childlike manner." Your daughter was a teenager. That is a rough time for kids, even when their home life is stable. You gave her 1 whole year before you cut bait and gave up on her. Then you moved away. You told your daughter that she wasn't important enough to fight for, and she believed you. Now that she is an adult with a child of her own, she has reached out to you, and you again told her that she wasn't important to you. And she now knows that she was probably right to cut you out the first time.
Update. Look, I was extremely drunk last night. The words which came out of my mouth weren't the best, and my comments on my post weren't great either. Seeing how everyone said I was the a-hole, I decided to call my daughter again an hour ago. I didn't really expect her to pick up the call, but she picked up immediately, and I apologized for last night, and she said there was no need to apologize. I then sent her a link to this Reddit post, and I told her I know I was the a-hole, and thousands said so, and she again said I wasn't the a-hole, and she started crying again. I told her she's free to come to my house anytime in the next 4 months, because after that, I will be leaving the country with my sister and our dog. Our parents left us a nice farmhouse in their home country, and we will be spending the rest of our lives there. I sent her my address, and my daughter said she would come with her husband and her daughter by the end of next week, and she asked if she was welcome to stay there for multiple days, and I told her she could stay for however long she wanted, as our house was spacious enough. Story number 5. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister I told you so after she announced to our family that her husband was divorcing her? So, I, 21F, have a sister named Lisa, 27F, and my sister has, in my eyes, an unhealthy obsession to make every room in her house fit her aesthetic, so no colorful colors except different shades of brown, gray, and white. She will throw away anything that does not fit into her aesthetic, including her daughter's toys, Maya 2F, and her husband Mark 29M's clothes. I've told my sister several times she needs to stop this before she does something to push Mark over the edge, and she told me to shut up because she knows her man so well. Lisa also has a history of throwing away gifts, including gift bags if it's not in her style. What pushed Mark to finally stand up and leave Lisa was when his elderly mother, whose hobby is knitting, gifted both Mark and Maya colorful sweaters that she knitted herself that took a long time to make, and Lisa did not like this. So, behind Mark's back, she threw them away, and Mark learned about this. And when he did, he told her that he was done and demanded a divorce. And Lisa called my parents to tell them the news, and I said I told you so on the call, and she cussed me out, then hanged up. My mom said I could be more sympathetic, and my dad agreed with her. So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Okay, let me address a few things here since there are too many comments. 1. My parents aren't bad people. They don't play favorite and they don't like Lisa's aesthetic lifestyle. They only are going to lend a shoulder to cry on because she's getting a divorce, and Mark kicked her out. 2. Lisa is now living here since Mark has now kicked her out. 3. Lisa's behavior started when she joined college. 4. When we ask her to seek therapy or help because of her behavior, she screams that she's not mental and calls us stupid and then gives us the cold shoulder. And 5. She only allows grays, browns, a select shades of white, and black. Edit number 2. For those asking, no, Lisa can't get the sweaters back. She threw them into a random dumpster, and when she went back for them, they were already gone. And no, I don't think Mark's mom can make another one. It took her over a year to knit 2 of them, and she's already in her late 60s, has arthritis, and used expensive yarn. I will update if something happens. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, not the a-hole. Maybe if your parents didn't support her cruel nonsense, she wouldn't be getting a divorce. Who throws away hand-knitted gifts over a BS aesthetic? The truth is long overdue. My parents don't support her aesthetic behavior, but convincing her to change is like talking to a brick wall. Right now, they're lending a shoulder to cry on because at the end of the day, she's still their daughter. But me personally, I see it as karma for pushing her boring aesthetic onto us. Then user 2 commented and said, not the a-hole. When you say this is an unhealthy obsession, I agree. Has anyone recommended your sister to seek therapy? Her behavior sounds sort of OCD related, or some type of anxiety disorder. Truly, what normal, healthy, functioning human person would take an aesthetic preference to this level? I recommended help several times, but she calls me names and says she's not mental, and convincing her to get help will get you the silent treatment or lots of insults. Then OP elaborated on having some stashes for her niece away from Lisa and said, I appreciate your points. My niece does have a hidden stash of colorful toys at my parents' house, and my sister throws a fit if we even put colorful scrunchies in her hair. My niece's wardrobe is all browns, grays, whites, and a few black pieces, and my sister throws a tantrum if anything we bring isn't in her aesthetic. She once called my mother an idiot for using color scrunchies in my niece's hair. Any toys we buy her must be kept at our parents' house, or it will be thrown away.
And finally, OP elaborated on the decisions for the colors at Mark and Lisa's wedding and said,
I did see this more than a mile away. They've been married for 4 years now, and I knew this marriage wouldn't last when I saw her flip out on the color of tie he was wearing. It was a dark blue tie, and she wanted gray. And the reason I said it was because I couldn't pity her at the time. Update. So yeah, I'm back, and I didn't expect to be back so soon. Long story short, my sister got arrested for attacking her soon-to-be ex-husband Mark and his mother after getting served with divorce papers. After Lisa was served with divorce papers at her workplace on Friday, Lisa started drinking and crying a lot and spent the entire weekend drinking and crying and repeatedly calling Mark. Last night, she took an Uber to Mark's home and begged him to reconsider the divorce. This is the story I got from Mark, and he said no. Then she started insulting him and hitting them. Then when his mom tried to push him away from Mark, my sister attacked Mark's mom. Mark called the police, and now my sister is arrested with a $6,000 bail that none of us are paying. Mark got a bite and scratch marks, and his mom has a black eye. I will update when more details come out.
Now, here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said, well, she sure doesn't let logic get in the way of her decision-making. Then User 2 commented and said, for F's sake, your sister is where she belongs, and I hope Mark and his mom press charges and don't back down. And finally, User 3 commented and said, imagine being so pathetic and shallow that you literally ruined your marriage and life over a doctor's waiting room aesthetic. What a boring, angry woman.
Okay, I gotta say, that last comment hit the nail on the head. What a boring, angry person. It's not even like she was living extravagantly or colorfully. It's boring, drab colors. You know, like they can look nice here and there, but it's everything. It's the whole place. She's crazy, insane. Wow, we're getting a few crazies today, aren't we? And the poor daughter can't even play with toys if they're not the appropriate colors, or have scrunchies, or probably can't even think about colors. It's like the book The Giver or something, I don't know. But just so egregious. And like those comments said, she's where she belongs. And all I have to say now is, I hope she gets used to orange. Anyway, next story. Story number 6. My dad is trying to force my uncontrollable stepsister on my trip, and I told him I would never forgive him. I, 17F, am graduating, and my friends and I have already planned a trip to a cabin for the summer before we start college. And I have been a babysitter since I was 13, so I have saved up a considerable amount of money. When I was 15, my dad got remarried about 1.5 years after my mom passed away. My dad's wife had a 13-year-old daughter, and as soon as we moved in together, they started to push her off on me and force us to do everything together. I don't like my stepsister. She's always throwing tantrums if she doesn't get what she wants. She's spoiled to the point that at my 16th birthday, she got her own special cake so she wouldn't feel left out. And she also blew out the candles on my cake, and when I complained, my dad told me, it's time to grow up. Being a sister is about sharing things. And I told him, I don't have a sister. And I guess she overheard that, and she went on a rampage. And the party was ruined, and I distanced myself more from them after that. I am forced to either take her with me to places or stay home with her if I can't take her or my dad, or dad's wife can't watch her, or doesn't want to deal with her. Imagine everything that I said she does with my dad and his wife onto a 15 to 17-year-old me. I was forced to take her bowling with me, and she would not stop trying to dig her hands into the part where the ball comes out, and she tried running down the lane, so I had to take her home, and my night was ruined. This happens a lot, but they don't care. I've tried to keep this trip a secret from her, but when I was in my room on the phone talking about it over pizza and music, I found out she snuck in and hid in the closet and was eavesdropping. She bursted out asking if she could come, and I told her no, and to get out. And she started stomping her feet and she ran out, and my friends begged me not to invite her. My dad called me downstairs and asked if she could go because she could use a vacation, and I told him I'm not taking her. They can take her on a vacation, but I'm not watching her for almost 3 weeks alone. My dad's wife called me selfish and that my dad was paying for a portion of it anyways, and if Lily doesn't go, then I don't get to go. And I told her she doesn't get a say in any of this. She's not my mom, and stop forcing her child on me when she created what she is. Lily then starts yelling at me about not being a big sister, and I don't want to spend time with her. I snap and tell her I don't, and she ran away crying, and my dad said he won't pay for the rest of the trip if I don't take her. So I told him if he does that, I will not be talking to him anymore, nor will I forgive him for it. And he said I'm being dramatic and that she isn't bad. So I grabbed a bag and went to my aunt's house, my mom's sister, and told her what happened, and she said she would put up what he took away, and when I go to college, I can stay with her. I told my dad what I was doing, and he blew up at me and said I was being a brat and that they're my family now and not my aunt.
As far as I know, she does not have any disabilities. She's been to doctors and therapy. She's just insanely spoiled, and that's how she is, and she's always gotten her way when told no. The first time I met her, everyone agreed on Mexican food, except her, and she was yelling in the car for 10 minutes before she calmed down by her mom appeasing her. Then she goes back on her phone texting. If she does that, then that explains why she acts that way. And I can take it that she can't help it, but I still shouldn't be forced to watch her 24/7. Now, here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "Your aunt is acting more of a family member than your dad. I agree. See if you can live with your aunt now. And are you dependent on your dad for college?" No, I am not. My mom left me money for 2 years, and I decided to do a registered nurses program, and then go back once I work and save up more money. Then user 2 commented and said, "If you are being truthful about Lily's behavior, it sounds like she has some sort of emotional or intellectual impairment. Has she had a formal diagnosis?" No, she is just extremely spoiled and acts like this to get her way. She knows she just has to cry a bit and stomp around and they'll give in. And she does not have any mental problems. She's just spoiled. She's been to doctors and therapy. Then OP replied to a now deleted and downvoted comment and said, "I don't have, nor did I want a sister. It's not even like they tried to slowly bring us together. They forced her onto me. She constantly throws tantrums. So if any small thing is about me, she needs to be the center of attention. She may be a child, but she is not my child, and I wouldn't have had to become a parent because of my dad's wife's lack of parenting." Then user 3 commented and said, "OP, how close are you to 18? I would slowly start moving important things to your aunt's house and then move in the day you turn 18. Make sure you let your school know not to contact your dad anymore and that you are living with your aunt." I turn 18 in September, and I've read the comments and I am making lists of everything I need to get and put at my aunt's house. And finally, OP elaborated on being the bigger person and said, "I don't have to be the bigger person. I'm tired of being neglected and having her forced onto me. I'm going on this trip without her, and if that ends up with me not talking to my dad anymore, so be it. He's the adult and the parent here." Update. I know a lot of people wanted an update to my last post, so here it is. The trip happened, and I did not end up taking her like I said I wasn't. From the time that I posted that up until the time that I left, the household was very tense and awkward. I was not speaking to any of them, and the only person I had to confide in and talk to was my aunt, and I'm so grateful for her. My dad still thought I was going to bring her on that trip, and I kept telling him that I am not watching her and she is not coming with me. The morning of the trip, we left at 6 in the morning. When he called me, I was already about 5 hours out, so he couldn't do anything. And when I got back, it was a lot of yelling and crying from me and my dad and his wife, and she said that I left them in a tough position, and they had to stay home because they couldn't get anyone to watch Lily. Anyway, my dad and I had a serious talk for hours, and he agreed that maybe we need to separate so we can work on our relationship. Which hurt me because I would have liked for him to tell me I can stay in my own home while we do it. But I ended up going to my aunt's house with no issues. My dad and I started family therapy with just the two of us, and his wife was pretty upset that he was actually listening to me and was seeing where I was coming from. Right when we were getting good and building a better relationship, I came over for dinner, and he asked if we could integrate his wife and Lily into therapy, and I told him that I have no interest in having a relationship with them, and she called me a selfish C-word, and that I need to be grateful that she let me stay with them after she moved in. I waited for my dad to correct her, and he was pretty much silent, so I left, and I haven't spoken to him in almost a month. He keeps showing me that he will not be on my side. So, to wrap things up, the cabin trip was so much fun, and I never felt so free from a burden. The trip was in June, and we were there for almost a month. We extended it. When I was packing for school, my dad came to visit, and I guess his wife called and he had to lie about where he was because I guess she doesn't want him to see me. So I told him we don't need to have contact right now or continue therapy because it's clear which part of his family he cares more about. I don't know what's going to become of my dad, and right now, I don't care. I'm focused on school and studying to become a nurse, and I don't want any negativity to ruin this experience. But I'd be lying if I said it doesn't hurt that I don't have a parent to experience this with. But my aunt says she is my surrogate mom and to share all my worries and success with her. I'm currently in my first week of college, and the amount of freedom I feel here is also so new. I feel a little bit overwhelmed, but I'm in an honors club, and I also am in a creative writing/book club, and the friends I have made are so amazing. I am currently living on campus, and I have never been better mentally. I'm getting separate therapy to deal with my mom's death because that was never offered to me by my dad, and my aunt has truly become a mother figure to me. Being 2 states away from her is really hard, but I can't wait for weekend visits and holiday visits. Also, another thing is that I'm going to be a godmother. My aunt was told at 22 that she would never be able to have kids, and she is currently 4 months pregnant, and I'm so excited because if anybody is going to be a good mother, I know it's going to be her. When she came to visit and tell me, I think she saw that I was a little worried, and I told her I am so excited and happy for her, and nothing will change that. But she's the only family I have right now, and I don't want to get left behind like I did at home. And we cried, and she promised me that she was filling in for my mom, and she will always be there for me for the rest of my life, whether I like it or not. I'm planning the baby shower, and I can't wait for the baby to be here. But yeah, that's it. Thanks all for checking up on me and giving me encouraging words. Now here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said, I just don't understand how your dad doesn't see that Lily is a massive problem if they have to hire a babysitter at her age at 15, and said that they were stuck at home with her as a result. My dad doesn't want to see it, or he does and cares more about keeping his wife happy. Then user 2 commented and said, OP, what do you write about in this writer's club of yours? You bring in work that you have written and you share it. You write flash fiction from the same prompt, write poems, watch videos or lectures about writing techniques, talk about writing contests or places to submit stories, and we're also talking about incorporating improv so we can be creative that way with our stories. And finally, user 3 commented and said in a downvoted comment, I feel like you should have set some better boundaries instead of just giving up. You need to lay it out for him. Do you really think she's good for your life if she's keeping you away from your daughter? Are you really a man and a father if you're going to let a woman dictate what you can and can't do? I would tell him straight up you don't have the luxury of giving up because you made me. So I would appreciate it if you get a damn backbone and start acting like it. That's fair, and I respect your opinion, but it's not my job to try and fix anything or set boundaries anymore. We did talk about it in therapy, and he still tried to integrate them into the sessions when I have expressed hundreds of times I do not want that. So I'm done trying. I'm the child in this situation. Oh, the crazies are coming out this October, aren't they? Provided this gets uploaded in October. But I feel like as for this story, and specifically that last comment, I see where that last commenter is coming from. Like, I think they're making fair points that she could have presented to her father, but those are points that, like, too little too late in a way. Like, if this was back when they were doing therapy, I think those would be valid points, and I'm sure she would have brought those up in couples or family therapy, but we're so past that now. The dad has already picked sides. Whether he likes it or not, it's clear where his priorities lie. So I don't agree with that final comment. I'm assuming that's why it's downvoted. Those are fair points. I just feel like they're coming a little too late. Also, the stepmom called OP a selfish C word. We never get that word on this channel, so like, damn. But I don't know. The kid's horrible. The stepmom sucks and doesn't want to watch her kid. The dad has made his priorities clear, and parentification is just a horrible, awful thing. And I got a little emotional. I'm so glad that OP has that aunt, because she is a rock star, S-tier aunt having a child at the age of 50 or something. I don't know. But anyway, good for her. OP's gone. She's moved away, and maybe she can have that relationship with dad down the line. I feel like long term, if we get an update, things are not going to work out between dad and that horrible child demon spawn and his stupid wife. Anyway, next story. Story number 7. I, 17F, have celiac disease. My new friend group, ranging from 16 to 22, thinks I'm anorexic and are planning on having an intervention. A little background. My parents divorced when I was very young, and my mom got me for most of the year, and my dad got me for the summer. I hated going to my dad's house, partially because he was very stubborn and rude and always had to do things his way, but also because every time I went to my dad's house, I got violently sick. Nausea, rashes, pain, muscle cramps, and then when I got older, I'd start missing my periods. TMI, I'm sorry. And I went to the doctor, but he said it was just psychosomatic problems related to stress and directed me to a therapist. My dad didn't let me see a therapist because he thought it was total bullcrap, and my mom took me to one a few times, but by then, my symptoms had cleared up, so we couldn't tell if it helped at all. One thing that really pissed me off was that my dad ate a lot of junk food and drank soda instead of water, and he mocked me mercilessly if I tried to eat healthy, and I think it reminded him of my mom, because she's always been a bit of a health nut. I would sneak carrots into the house, and if he found them, he would throw them out. At my mom's house, I'd eat vegetables and organic chicken, and sometimes a food would make me feel sick, but I'd just stop eating that food and it was fine. I got into the habit of turning down any food offered to me because I didn't know if it was safe, and I just explained it away as being a picky eater. And then when I was 16, a new girl moved to my school. I became friends with her, and after a couple of months, I noticed that she avoided all the same foods as me. I mentioned it in passing, and I'm like, hey, isn't that weird? And then she got concerned and told me that she had celiac disease, and I should get myself checked out. And I got checked, and sure enough, I had it, and everything suddenly made sense. I was so excited to finally understand what was wrong that I told everybody I knew. I told all of the people who I thought were my friends, and they didn't really react well. They acted fine at first, but I noticed they were all doing the slow fade on me. I confronted my closest friend about it, and she said that they all thought I was faking it for attention. They'd only heard about gluten-free diets as a stupid fad, and I broke down crying and told her all about how horrible I felt when I had to go to my dad's house, and how I couldn't believe that she didn't believe me, and she was horrified. She turned around and became my biggest supporter, and she spoke to the others, but they still thought I was full of crap and feeding her lies. So we decided it was best to break it off with them. My birthday is in August, so I had 2 more summers left with my dad to go through after I found out. And he took the revelation about my disease even worse than my ex-friends. He would scream that I thought I was better than him, and I was making up medical problems because I wanted to be special, and that he wouldn't put up with that crap. I offered to take him with me to the doctor, but he said that doctors are scam artists, and he didn't believe anything they said. It was horrible. And it got to the point where he started sabotaging my food and cursing at me when I got sick. So I've gotten pretty wary about telling people about the disease. Between my personal experiences and hearing people make fun of gluten-free food on TV and the internet, I've decided I'm not comfortable with telling new people. I know that's cowardly, but I'm so afraid of what people will think of me. Now fast forward, this is my last summer with my dad, and it's the last summer with my dad. He can rot in hell for all I care, and he treats me like crap. I've only got to tough it out for another few weeks, then that's not my problem. And I can already hear your advice about leaving my dad's house or calling CPS, and respectfully, I've made my decision that it's just easier to stay for the next 3 weeks and then leave forever. Please don't focus on that part. This is the problem I need help with. My best friend and I have made a group of new friends. They're great people, really fun, and we play role-playing games every weekend. We've been hanging out since May, and there's 10 or 11 of them depending on whether you count this guy who doesn't regularly attend games. Well, my best friend approached me yesterday and told me that the rest of the group has been talking behind my back. They've put together the fact that I constantly turn down food and that I'm very picky about what I eat, and that I've been getting thinner and acting sick because I've been living with my dad, and they have come to the conclusion that I have anorexia, and they're planning on staging an intervention for me next weekend. Guys, I don't know what to do. This is such an awkward situation. I know I should tell them, but I'm so scared they're going to reject me, and they've already got this idea in their heads about what's wrong, and at this point I'm afraid they'll think I'm just making excuses, and I've been burned before. I've lost a ton of friends by telling them about my disease, and yeah, they were jerks, but it effing hurt. How do I do this? How do I explain it so that they'll believe me? I can't handle any more people calling me a liar. I'll have a mental breakdown. This disease has ruined my life in so many ways, and I just wanted to have this one part of my life separate from that. Please, Reddit, give me advice. Update. Hey guys, thanks for all your help. The intervention was yesterday, and I figured you guys would want to know how everything went. A few hours before the game started, one of my friends, let's call him Zach, texted me asking me to come to his house. He hosts the games, and he wanted me to come early to discuss gaming terms that will be nonsense to most of you. I figured this was probably the intervention, and I texted my best friend to ask if she'd been invited too, and she hadn't, so I asked her to come with me. And I think there was some confusion in the last post. This is the same friend who was with my other friend group who I poured my heart out to. Then she followed me to the new group. Let's call her Laura. Before I went to his house, I did something a little cheeky inspired by one of the comments on the last post. I went and picked up some gluten-free Chinese food from a place that I frequent. They have this amazing vegetable fried rice that I've fallen in love with. They're really careful about cross-contamination, and I've been eating there for years and never gotten sick. And I brought the food with me to Zach's house, along with Laura and my notebooks and dice for playing. Zach seemed really taken aback that Laura was there, and I asked him if he had a problem with it, because if we were going to talk about complicated gaming things, then she would be a part of the conversation, because she qualifies. Then he awkwardly said it was fine. Then I said something like, "Is it alright if I eat something while I do this? I missed lunch and I'm really hungry." And I pulled out the Chinese food. And he said it was fine, but he seemed kind of alarmed, like I was freaking him out. I started eating, and he started his pitch. "I didn't actually call you here to talk about game stuff. Me and some of the others have noticed some things recently that we're concerned about, and they elected me to talk to you about it." Then I replied with, okay. And then he listed off a bunch of things that I've been doing that made them worry about me. The way they never saw me eat anything, that I always seemed sick and was getting thinner, the fact that I always seemed uncomfortable and nervous when the topic of food came up, that I turned down everything offered to me. And then he finally dropped the bombshell. Michelle's older sister is anorexic, and she acts a lot like you do. And we think you might be anorexic, he said. And I swallowed my food and tried not to look nervous, and I said to him, I'm not. And he started talking about how nobody thinks they're anorexic, but there's clearly something going on with me, and he just started rambling, so I cut him off and I said, I do have a problem. It's not anorexia. Can I talk? And he reluctantly agreed. And I think he was afraid I was going to say that I was too fat and my problem was that I needed to lose weight or something. Like, he really got committed to the idea that I was anorexic. And I'm going to try and paraphrase what I said here, but I was very proud of myself for it. And I said, I know I'm losing weight in an unhealthy way, but it's not on purpose. I have a disease that means I can't eat grains like wheat, barley, and rye. When I do, I get very, very sick and my body starts ripping up my stomach. And I can't digest much of anything, even things that don't have those grains in them. It's not just an allergy, it does serious long-term damage to me. If I ate a piece of bread, I would break out in rashes. I'd start throwing up, and I might get stuff that seems unrelated like horrible muscle cramps. When I turned down food, it's because you guys offered me stuff like Doritos and PB&Js. If I ate that stuff, it would make me violently ill. If I turned it down to keep from making my health problems even worse. And the reason my symptoms have been popping up and I've been getting sick and losing weight is that right now I'm living in a family situation where I'm forced to eat the foods that my body reacts badly to. When I first met you guys, I was living with my mom and she accommodated me really well. But right now I'm living with my dad and he sabotages my food because he thinks I'm making my disease up and that my doctor is a fraud. Then Zach took out actual note cards and looked through them. He literally had a script for the intervention. That's what I get for hanging out with the kind of dramatic people who play tabletop RPGs, I guess. And he was quiet for a really long time. Then he had a few questions. 1. But then why do you turn down, like, Coca-Cola? Because Coke is nasty, but I didn't want to complain and make you guys buy root beer just for me. 2. Why didn't you just tell us about this stuff? Laura took this one and explained what happened with our last friend group. 3. Okay, so like, what would I probably have in the house right now that you would be willing to eat in front of me? And I wanted to facepalm at this one. I asked if he was serious, and he was. And then I said, I don't know, have you got celery? And he shook his head. Yogurt? No. An apple? Nope. Seriously? He nodded. And I said, have you got some freaking popcorn, like air-popped popcorn? That he did have. So I ate some popcorn in front of him, and he finally seemed to accept what I was saying. He awkwardly changed the subject to gaming things, and we talked about that until the rest of the group showed up. And when Michael got there, Zach took him aside, and he started talking to him in a way that I guess they thought was subtle. They kept looking over at me, and they weren't keeping their voices down very well. Michael asked if I seemed defensive, and Zach shrugged and said not really, and I pointedly ate popcorn for the rest of the game. Michael texted me after the game and apologized for assuming that I was anorexic, and asked what snacks they could put out for me. I actually cried a little bit. I was worried about getting kicked out, but they immediately moved to accommodating me. They're nice people. So, everything worked out fine. Sorry for the anticlimax. So, I can certainly see why, from the perspective of all the friends, they thought that OP was anorexic. And you know, the intention was nice, like, hey, like, anorexia is not good for you. But what they didn't know is that she has celiac disease, which, I mean, it's crazy that her initial friend group, I mean, I guess they're high schoolers, were like, oh, she's doing it for attention, oh, whatever. And then the dad, oh, God. There's always one crazy, insane person in all the stories today, have you noticed? And it's the dad this time, who doesn't believe in doctors because they're wackos and stuff like that. But that one guy, he had note cards. I respect it. I have a friend who I feel like would do that. But, I mean, ultimately, despite the confusion and stuff like that and the can you eat in front of me please thing, ultimately they were nice about it. And OP met some normal people who were like, oh, you got a thing going on, okay, let's accommodate for you. Like, what she encountered is not normal, but you know, she got worried, understandably so, because her dad betrayed her and her friends betrayed her over something that she can't control. But ultimately, in the end, she's got nice people around her. She's still got her old friend. She's figuring out what she has, and like that other story, she knows what she has now, and now she can get ahead of it. She can keep it under control. She could, you know, not let it derail her life entirely. So good for OP. Anyway, next story. Story number 8. Every time we, 25M and 26F, go out to eat, she orders something exotic and hates it, then expects to switch meals with me. She sees this as quirky, and I'm about to leave her for it. It's so frustrating. What are some solutions?
So, maybe I'm making too big a deal out of this, maybe it is a big problem. That's why I'm posting here. This has been going on since we've dated in college, and I will use last night as an example. So, I'm always the safe order guy, meaning I get chicken tenders, steak, a burger, orange chicken, etc. It's not that I dislike other food, it's that if I'm doing something crazy, I want to buy it, prepare it, cook and serve it. I want to be in control of the whole process. She always orders the special, the catch of the day, the taster's menu, etc. And she inevitably says, "I don't really like this. I should have just ordered what you got. Let's switch." And she grabs my plate. Sometimes I'm able to eat her food. Sometimes it is really bad, and then I go hungry. And I've brought this up with her, and she has upfront told me she thinks it makes her quirky and fun. And I've known this since dating her. Last night, we went to a sports bar after our league beach volleyball game, and we were starving. I just wanted food, so I ordered chicken tenders and fries. Well, this dingy sports bar was having a snow crab special, which of course she wanted, and I begged her, please just order something they couldn't mess up, and she accused me of being so boring. Well, her food came, and her crab legs looked, smelled, and tasted like they were rotting wax. And of course, she didn't want it and wanted my tenders, and I finally stood up for myself and said no, she could send them back and order her own food, and cue a massive fight. She accused me of wasting food, of not cooperating with her, and not reading the room, whatever that meant. And I told her no, that I was not doing it this time. She started crying and demanded to go home. And I said no, I was hungry, I was eating my food. And then I think she got an Uber to a friend's house, and I have not seen her since. And I'm fed up. Is this breakup worthy? And what should I do about this? Edit. We are engaged and live together, by the way. We also share credit cards and bank accounts. Now, here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "She sounds insanely entitled and has the mentality and temper of a 4-year-old. Why would anyone want to date someone like that?" Then User 2 replied and said, "Because she's quirky and fun, that's why. Seriously though, she needs to act like an adult, dude." Then User 3 commented and said, "OP, I'm very much Joey doesn't share food, and if someone pulled this crap with me and expected me to let it slide because they thought it made them quirky and fun, I'd be gone. She sounds annoying AF, extremely entitled, and also very slightly psychotic for expecting OP to go hungry, all because she's playing the part of a quirky, fun, and adventurous foodie. I expect this has to do more with her testing his limits than just food, as evidenced by her blowing up when he suggested, quite logically, she orders something else. It's like she wants him to suffer to prove how endearing he finds her. To be fair, I don't think she expects me to go hungry. In fact, I'll bet she's never noticed if I finish her meal or not." Then User 4 commented and said, "That's telling if she doesn't even notice. Makes you wonder what else she isn't noticing about you in the relationship." I don't want to sound like a crybaby because I have made a choice with her, but yes, I do more of the labor in the relationship. Then User 5 commented and said, "It's only quirky and fun if she eats what she effing orders. I realize you already know this, but why in the hell should you have to give up your food because of her bad gamble? At the core of it, it sure seems like it's a, let's see how much of my bullcrap he will indulge test, and I would say no more would be the correct answer. And you haven't seen her since? I suspect she'll be back in touch, and you can give her an opportunity to apologize. But that crap is unacceptable. She owes you an apology, and I sort of doubt you're going to get one." Your second paragraph is what I have felt for a very long time put into words. Thank you. And finally, User 6 commented and said, "If she's the one labeling it as quirky and fun, it isn't. I get wanting to try something, but she needs to order her own food. Who pays the tab, by the way?" I mean, technically we both do, since we have shared credit cards and bank accounts. Update. So, I don't remember the exact timeline of how things went down on Sunday as far as me posting, but my original post was locked when she texted me at 6 p.m. telling me that I owed her a huge apology for the way I behaved at the sports bar and the volleyball game. I still don't know what that is about. And I asked her where she was. She said she would tell me when I apologized. I said I was not going to apologize, and she said she needed some time to think whether this relationship was right for her, and I told her that I'm just exhausted by so much of what she does that I couldn't do it anymore. She hung up, and I haven't heard back from her since. She hasn't even been by to pick up a change of clothes, so I don't know where she is. I canceled all of my credit cards that we shared and opened up a new bank account and took half out of our shared, but she hasn't taken any money out or used her debit card, so I guess I'm a little concerned, since for all effect and purposes, she's disappeared. I'm not too worried now, but if I haven't heard anything by Friday, I will call her parents, and I kind of think she's doing this disappearing act for attention. Now, here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said, "Wait, so to sum this up, she ignored your
reasonable requests to order food that she knows she'll like, publicly threw a fit when you wouldn't give up your own meal despite being warned that's what would happen, yelled, stormed out, and has been MIA for days? Over a meal that she could have easily sent back herself? Holy drama, bruh. Like, wow, bullet dodged, huh? Can you imagine a whole lifetime, OP, of ridiculous public tantrums over easily resolvable stuff? Yikes.
Well, it was the meal and whatever it is I did to make her mad at the volleyball game. Then user 2 commented and said,
Text her to pick up her things by X date, or you will have it sent to her parents. And I think she's doing this for attention, which is all the more reason you were right to dump her. Tell her parents that you broke up and she has not been in contact. Tell them that she did not tell you where she was, but could they check in on her? And don't wait on that. The sooner you do this, the sooner you can get her out of your life.
Okay, I can do that. That's probably a good idea. Edit. I called her parents and they haven't heard from her either. And me calling them now has them worried because they thought she was with me. I'm going to drive her important things over to their house and wash my hands of her. Whatever happens to her now is of her own making at this point.
Okay, so that first comment from the final batch that we read, just assume that was me. Like, that was just my whole takes, okay? Yikes, LMAO, WTF bruh, drama, bullet dodge, WTF BBQ. LMFAO. Just kidding. Nobody says LMFAO anymore, but people do still say Lamau. That's interesting. But, yeah, again, crazy person. And I have to say, if somebody says that they're quirky and stuff like that, it's not. They're just annoying. Okay, quirky has been killed. Maybe we can pick it up in a few years when it's cooled off. Remember when cringe got killed? Mainly by Leafy. You abused that word. All right, cringe is kind of, cringe is back now. But quirky, we got to put quirky down. And anyone who uses it, I don't want to say it's a red flag, but just be alert to their behavior because quirky probably means annoying. Anyway, next story.
Story number 10. Am I the a-hole for getting hurt and upset over a harmless prank that my husband pulled? So, me and my husband have been married for 5 years. We are currently F24 and M33. Way before we met when I was 16, my mom's house had a fire that burnt literally everything down, and sadly, my childhood cat was also killed in it. I remember my mom and brother waking me up screaming, "Fire, fire, get up, get up!" And we crawled out under the smoke, and luckily my neighbors had already called the fire department, and they pulled us out. We lost literally everything. We were devastated. So, that was a while ago, but it still really scares me, and I check outlets and our stove and candles and everything all the time, and my husband knows this about me. So, 2 nights ago I went to bed early because I am currently 34 weeks pregnant, literally about to pop, and I was sleeping for a while before some reason my husband decided to wake me up by yelling, "Baby, there's a fire, get up, get up!" And as quick as I could get up at 34 weeks I did, and I grabbed my purse. I was just in automatic shock and just autopilot and knew what I needed to grab, and I made it all the way down the stairs yelling for my husband to follow me before he started laughing and telling me it was a joke. It took a minute for that to process, and I stood there with an open mouth while he laughed and ushered me down the rest of the stairs, and I sat down on the couch and just started sobbing. It was genuinely the hardest I have ever sobbed, and it's like I couldn't get myself to stop and my whole body was shaking. My heart was racing and I couldn't breathe, and I have never had this experience before. I was genuinely so panicked. I was so effing upset. And my husband apologized and he was like, "Oh my God, I'm sorry, it was just a joke." And I just cried and cried until eventually he was like, "What the F? It was just a prank. This is really dramatic." After a few hours, I had calmed myself down and went to apologize to him, and he wouldn't take it. He said I was being overdramatic and made him feel like crap for a harmless prank. So, I guess, am I the a-hole? I've never been good at taking jokes, and I've been trying to be less sensitive, but I don't know. Then in the comments section, one user said,
OP, why did you apologize?
Then OP replied in a downvoted comment and said, "I apologized because he made a big deal about me making him feel horrible." Update. A month ago, I posted my first post, which is still up on my account, and I was terrified and hurt and confused, and the comments really helped me sort through everything going on. A week later, I went into prepartum labor and gave birth to my baby at 35 weeks. A week after that, my husband beat me unconscious when he caught me Googling the signs of an abusive marriage after he coerced me into sex a week postpartum. Today, I filed for divorce and secured a restraining order on him, and my husband will never lay a hand on me or my baby ever again. I cannot confidently say that I would have made that decision without the help of my original post.
So thank you so very much. I think maybe people don't realize how much you can help a stranger on the internet, but you can, and all of you did. I will be the woman who leaves after the first time, and I will be the best mother I can be, and that starts with leaving him. Thank you.
Well, a short and simple story, and we've gotten multiple stories about abusive relationships, but like OP mentioned, she said, I'm going to be the person who leaves after the first time, and I applaud her for it because that can be hard. You know, we've seen these abusive relationships, the mental dynamics and the, mental abuse that these people suffer, and I'm sure you caught it the second she said, oh, I should have apologized, but he wouldn't accept it. I'm like, excuse me? You don't need to apologize for anything. So I'm glad that she realized that pretty fast and left pretty fast, and I mean, he beat her unconscious. Oh my goodness. But you know what? She's got the restraining order. She's getting the divorce. Hopefully, he doesn't get custody because I'm just willing to bet the guy probably doesn't deserve it. But anyway, good for OP. Next story. Story number 11. OP gets a haircut and a divorce. I, 29M, was running some errands today and spontaneously decided to get a haircut. My hair wasn't that long, only to my chin, but it's been bothering me for a while now. It's not a drastic difference, just a little shorter and a more conveniently masculine style. I didn't even think about telling my husband, 41M, before doing it. When I got home and he saw my new haircut, he immediately got pissed. I asked him if he liked it, and he said he didn't. He asked me what I had been thinking cutting off my hair without talking to him first. And honestly, I didn't think it would be such a big deal because it's just hair, and it'll grow back eventually. But when I told him that, he completely freaked out and said if I didn't care about it, I should just cut it all off. And now I'm locked in the bathroom until I shave my head. I'm honestly in a bit of shock because I didn't expect this to escalate this way. I don't want to shave my head, but I also don't want to stay in the bathroom forever. Is it really such a big deal that I didn't talk to my husband beforehand? Edit. I decided that it's not worth to fight over this, so I'm just going to shave it off. I kind of made it a bigger issue than it should have been anyway, and I'm sorry for wasting your time. Also, no, I am not a woman. Update number 1. My husband and I had a fight yesterday. It wasn't even anything serious, but it escalated a little. I got a haircut without talking to him about it first, and he got mad about it. I then made it worse by saying it's not a big deal and it's just hair and it will grow back, and then he made me shave my head to prove his point. He's always been a little neurotic about things like plans and giving him a heads up before I do anything. He generally doesn't like it when I do things that he hasn't approved of first, like when I order something at a restaurant or when I make plans with people he doesn't know that well. But that's just how he is. I guess he's a micromanager and can be a little uptight about things, but I never took any of that as abuse. When I made a post on Reddit about our fight yesterday, a lot of comments said he's abusive. I don't think I'm being abused though. He never gets violent with me or forces me to do things I don't want to, but it got me thinking that maybe there are things I should look out for in case he ever changes. Update number 2. I just wanted to let you all know that you were right. After what happened last month, things kept getting worse. Last night, we had another fight that escalated, and after I was released from the hospital, I went straight to my sister's house. Tomorrow, her and her boyfriend are coming with me to collect some of my stuff. I'd like to think that I would have left him without your comments on my last post, but I'm honestly not completely sure if I wouldn't have just tried to find excuses for his behavior. So, thank you for that. Wow, back to back. Good grief. But you know what? Once again, short, brief, and quick to take action. I applaud OP. I don't know, it's what the crazies are happening today. And I'm looking at the title of the next story, and I'm willing to bet there's going to be a crazy person there. But, for this story, I'm glad that OP saw the signs. And, I dunk on Reddit sometimes, but it can be valuable. And when 50 people, 100 people are telling you, hey, you're probably in an abusive relationship, it forces people, even in OP's situation, to really look inwards and be like, oh man, maybe I am. Because these people don't always realize these things. So that's why they come here, and I'm glad that that was realized and acted on. Anyway, next story. Story number 12. There is something wrong with OP's wife. I'm posting here because my wife does not use or even really know what Reddit is, and I can't speak to anybody else but my therapist about it. I've tried asking friends and family, but none of them understand the gravity of what I'm saying, honestly. I am a 37-year-old man, and my lovely wife, 36, and I have little to no problems with each other. However, upon noticing little things that are mounting up to a rather terrifying level, I'm not sure I can ignore this anymore. She's a great person.
She's done so much for me this whole marriage and respects that I don't want to have sex after a rather traumatizing experience that I don't need to get into. And she does little things that shows that she listens and cares about me, and I do the same for her. I want to stay with her because we've been married for 10 years now, and she is all I know, but lately I just don't know what's going on and why she's acting the way she is. The first notable time was when we found an egg on the curb, and we assumed it was from our neighbor, given that they have chickens and maybe an egg rolled out or something. Without a second thought, my wife stomped on the egg. Now, I would have been fine had it been an infertile egg or a cooking egg without anything, but the entire fetus was seen and I threw up. And she laughed, saying that it was funny and at least the neighbors don't have to worry about another chicken. And I told myself that it was just an egg and she had no idea that there would be a fetus in it. But her reaction afterwards rattled me. I brushed it off because, like I said, I love her. Maybe that is stupid, but I do. I really love her. But the things continued, and my love for her is wavering. Some notable things I remember were stated below. We have a dog. We'll call him Butter. Butter is the most calm dog in the world, and housebroken and well-trained. However, one time he was very sick and irritated, and he went number 2 on the carpet. My wife screamed at Butter. Screamed. I told her to stop because the damage was done already, and Butter is a dog who is sick. I cleaned the carpet, and she never blew up at Butter again. But it rubbed me the wrong way how mean she was to him. I understand that she was frustrated, but Butter started crying and trying to give her paw, and she kept screaming at him. Then, my mom passed away in 2020, natural causes, but I was very close with her, and it took many years to accept it. I keep her favorite bracelet on a table with family photos of her and me, and one day it was missing, and I had a panic attack. The bracelet was made by my mom's grandfather, and she wore it every day. It was a part of her, but when I told my wife, she told me that she sold it. I sobbed. I wasn't mad at her, just devastated. But soon after, the bracelet was back on the table, and I asked her about that, and she started laughing and saying, "Oh, you should have seen your face." And then, when we were gardening, I noticed I dropped my keys. She was grouchy since it was hot, and she was planting flowers since the morning. When she found them, she threw them at my face, and it cut my nose. She felt horrible, but the reaction threw me off. And one time after work on Halloween, I was feeling especially depressed for no reason, and I don't blame her for this, but she played a prank on me and jump scared me, something we do every Halloween. But I started crying and having a mental breakdown because it was kind of the last straw for me after my shift. And she laughed and kept laughing, then went back to the living room and watched TV. One time on Facebook, we found out that a classmate had been in a car accident. I told her, and she shrugged, saying that she didn't really know her, so it doesn't matter. It's okay for her not to care about the victim, but the poor girl was heavily injured, and my memories of her from school were pleasant, and she genuinely didn't deserve what happened. My wife and I also love horror. We are horror fans, but I cannot stand violence against animals. It disturbs me. So when we put on When Evil Lurks, as you can imagine, I threw up. The kicker is that she has seen it but wanted to watch it with me since she loves it so much. I'm happy she loves it, but I would have appreciated a warning, which I vocalized. She shrugged it off, and that was that. That's a few, but the worst of it happened just yesterday. I tried my hardest not to say anything, but it might be my last straw. I was cleaning up our room, and my wife was at work, and I found a journal buried underneath the mattress as I was swapping sheets. For some reason, I opened it and realized quickly that it was my wife's diary. I would have put it back if I didn't see the words on the page. I was horrified. She wrote that when she was driving, there was a line of geese crossing the street. Annoying, yes, but the thing you are supposed to do is wait. My wife wrote that geese are a useless species, so it shouldn't matter if a few get run over. And yes, she ran over 2 geese on the road. Again, I was horrified. I know what people will say, so I'm going to answer a few questions. I love her. I recognize that sometimes her behavior is unacceptable and concerning. I recognize the concern, which is why I am here in the first place. But you all have to realize that for the past 16 years now, she's been my world. We dated for 6 years before getting married, and it's been 10 years since our wedding. In those 16 years, I've witnessed her go through horrific things, and she has witnessed the same. It's hard to sum up those 16 years, but it's difficult, and I'm already saying too much. I noticed the change over the past 3 years or so. Even then, in the moment, I didn't see it as an issue until reading that little journal entry. I can't just leave her, but I can't act the same around her after finding that out.
I realized that I need to confront her about what I saw, but truthfully, I'm afraid. I never knew it was something she was capable of until I read it and started putting the pieces together. Whatever is going on, I don't know what to do with it. She has a therapist, and so do I. She seems genuine, but I don't know what to do, knowing that she willingly unalived an animal without any remorse. Honestly, I just don't want to leave her. I met her young, and all I know is her. She's seen me through the most vulnerable parts of my life, and vice versa. Her and my family are basically intertwined. We all love each other. She's basically been there longer than when she hasn't. If I have to leave her, I think that will be it for me. That'll be all I have. I'm 37, which isn't old, but also not desirable either. I don't even know why she had a crush on me, because personally, I don't think I am desirable. I don't even know if this post will make sense. I don't know if anyone will take the time out of their day to read my struggles. My therapist is on vacation, so I can't tell her yet. I need somebody to talk to because everybody that I'm telling brushes it off since she is a very sweet person to them, and I just want to fix this. Edit. Answering some questions. I said she's witnessed horrific things in my post, and I mean that a family member of hers passed away, and one of our mutual friends passed as well, but this didn't happen until months later. Also, we have no kids. I had a rough experience that I won't delve into that made me realize I am asexual, and I will ask her soon. Then in the comments section, one user said,
OP, I will be super honest with you. I was married for 9 long years to someone just like your wife. The last straw was one of my cats being beaten to the point of her face being so swollen that one eye was shut for a week, and she didn't get out of her hiding spot for 3 days. Urine and feces in the corner of a closet, and I guess she couldn't bring herself to make a run for the litter box in case she would encounter him. I was out the door in a week. It took everything from me, but I knew this would escalate. Don't wait too long, OP. This sounds like a psychopath or covert narcissism. Be safe, take care, and please confide in family members or your friends that you trust. Let people know what's going on.
Then user 2 commented and said,
OP, you have a low self-esteem. That much is obvious from the way you write and describe yourself. That is why you want to stay with a woman who has no empathy, takes pleasure in animals being harmed, and even ended the life of one. And while this would normally be unnerving and freak someone out, you seem keen to turn a blind eye. People who harm animals and take pleasure out of it start with animals, but it graduates to human beings. And I'm so glad you don't have any kids with her either. You have said you don't want to leave her, and strangely, you seem to believe that at the age of 37, you're on the shelf. You talk about families being intertwined and that you've known her for years and years. So what? People get divorced after years of having enmeshed lives, mutual friends, shared assets, children, pets, etc. So what if you share these things or have been together for years? Is that reason enough to ignore and turn a blind eye to what sounds like psychopathic behavior? You said that she seems genuine and that she has a therapist. Well, she is very aware of how she comes across, and she wants you to remain in the marriage so she can continue to manipulate you. So of course she can do all the right things and come across as cooperative and reflective. She's not silly at all, and she knows exactly what she is doing. She hasn't become this way. Her mask slips every now and then, but then she puts the mask back on to keep you where you are, exactly where she needs you to be. This is just the tip of the iceberg, and I'm telling you, you don't know your wife like you think you do.
I read your comment and I just don't know what changed. I don't. That's what disturbs me. She wasn't always like this. Update. Answering some concerns. Thank you for your comments and your time. I've had a long month and there's a lot to say, but I honestly can't stress enough how much your support and words, harsh or not, mean to me. I'll say what's been on my mind lately, but if anybody just came for this, here it is. I'm leaving my ex-wife, Anna, but we are still together as I am packing my things, and I'm not really scared of her anymore, so that's her name. I sat down and had a conversation with her. Everything I wrote down and posted here was copy and pasted from Google Docs, and I left some details out since they were identifiable for both Anna and I. I then showed it to her and she blew up at me. I understand why she was angry. I did share some information about our marriage and our life on the internet. Her emotions were reasonable, but I started to get very irritable. She listened to the word vomit that just spewed out. She didn't really interrupt me or yell at me because I think she realized in that moment how badly it was all affecting me. I begged her to just hear me out, and surprisingly she did. She admitted to me that she also recognized that she was changing and told her therapist about it. Do I believe her? Not really. And she said that she's been scaring herself and that she's been having anger issues flaring up that she's noticed. And as some of you predicted, she didn't want to give up sex, so she cheated on me with some guy she met at her job. Honestly, by the time she explained herself, I didn't care, because I don't. With everything that has happened, this was the least shocking. I asked Anna genuinely if she loved the man she met, and she said yes, which hurt, but also didn't seem like a surprise to me. I told Anna that if she didn't love me, I can divorce her, and we can figure out the separation and home situation. She agreed far too quickly, but I was so emotionally exhausted and done with her crap that it didn't register how little she valued the marriage to just toss it out like it was nothing. I just told her for the next guy, she needs to get help, and she agreed that she would get herself checked into the hospital. Some of you suggested a tumor, but that wasn't the case. Her explanation was that the other man got her into drugs, and that's all I will say on the matter because it's all she told me. At this point, I don't even care what the reason was because the impact was all the same. Honestly, I will forever kick myself down for not recognizing any warning signs sooner. It should have never gotten to that point that it did, and while it may not be my fault, I am haunted every day by the thought that I could have been smarter and stopped her from doing everything that she did. When I say that she wasn't always like this, I mean it. She didn't give a specific date from when her affair started, so I can't pinpoint it to an exact event that happened. I miss the woman she used to be, the lovely girl I've known for almost 2 decades. I know this was something that had to be done, but no matter how many times I tell myself that, it doesn't make me feel any better. For those wanting to know, Butter is safe. He's a good boy and he's staying with my sister while I pack up to leave. My wife never physically hurt him, but she has yelled at him a few times. It hurts not having him here all the time since my sister's house is 30 minutes away, but he's safe and I will actually see him tonight. I also informed my family about the situation. I didn't want to, but I knew it was necessary. They understand and apologized for their brushing off of the situation. But to be fair, I downplayed it, so that could also be why they didn't see it as an issue. Her family knows as well that we're splitting up. As for me, I don't really have friends that are available that often, so I've spent most of my time alone in the house and thinking to myself, it was our house at one point. I remember when we first bought it and how excited she was. My best friend and I are going to eat out together, so that's something to look forward to. And she still admitted, I don't hear from her because they take your phone away at the hospital. I hope that she can recover, but after everything that my therapist, family, best friend, and you guys have said, I can't bring myself to stay with her. Breaking it off felt like ripping my own arm off. I was devastated, and I still am. She seemed distraught as well, but I don't even know what to believe anymore. I don't think she doesn't care about me. I think there's a part of her that still cares, but maybe I'm wishfully thinking. Even through everything, I can't be mad at her, but I know loving her isn't good for me. Is it wrong to forgive her? To see everything from her side? It hurts. It really does. I don't know anything but her. It feels like my life is over, even though it isn't. I don't want to date again, but I just want to connect with other people. It didn't click how isolated I was until I left, and I realize now that she is at fault for my lack of communication with anybody. But if I had to conclude this jumbled mess of an update, it would be this. I'm going to be fine. It's only been like 2 weeks, but it's been the longest 2 weeks of my life. I realize that there are more people around that support and care about me. It honestly was really hard to accept that Anna was a disturbed individual who didn't love me. Sometimes I still convince myself that she does, but everybody around me states that she doesn't, and I'm coming to terms with this. It's progress, and I've spent more than 16 years with this woman tormenting me, and I have a warped perception of reality. It truly is not easy to experience any of this, and honestly, sometimes I want to come back to her. But I know that maybe I can find the woman or man for me that will love me the way I need to. I'm working it out in therapy, and honestly, I'm still frightened of Anna, but I am thankful that she was the catalyst to a new chapter of my life. I learned a lot from this, mostly what love is and isn't. Thank you, everyone. You guys have good perspectives on things, and I can't say that Reddit is what fixed my problems, but I can say that leaving was a result of the extra push that you guys provided. I wish Anna the best, wherever the future takes her, and while I'm sad that the future will not have me in it, I think this was the best for the both of us, since she didn't seem to love me, and I now fear her. This should be the end of my updates. I don't really see this updating further unless something happens with her, and I want to be done with this, and I want to move on. Story number 13. Am I the a-hole for being sarcastic to my fiance's mother when she made uneducated comments about South Africa? I am 27F from Johannesburg, South Africa. My fiance Will, 27, is American. We met in 2018 during my MSc, Master of Science in England. We dated briefly but lost touch afterwards.
In 2021, he reconnected with me via Instagram and our relationship blossomed. He's visited South Africa a few times, and I have visited him in New York once. In May 2024, he proposed to me during a visit to Johannesburg, and I happily accepted. Recently, I got time off work and visited him in New York again. We also planned a trip to Atlanta to meet his family, whom I hadn't met before. I was excited but nervous. At first, everything seemed fine. His family welcomed me with a big dinner. However, his mother and aunt made some stereotypical and uneducated comments about South Africa, which I found amusing but also slightly irritating. They kept asking me why I sounded British and even compared me to Hermione from Harry Potter. Then, his mother said, "I'm honestly wondering how you're South African if you're not black. I didn't even know there were white people in South Africa." Then, as a naturally witty and sarcastic person, I responded without thinking, saying something like, "Yeah, we just magically appeared there one day, like poof." And in hindsight, I can see how this might have been the wrong approach. But it was my immediate reaction. His mother and aunt were clearly offended, and then everything became awkward. Will noticed the tension and he got upset. When he drove me back to my hotel, he started ranting about how disrespectful I was to his mother and aunt, and he talked about how important respect is in his family, and didn't let me explain. I apologized, still confused because I didn't think much of my comment at the time. It was meant to be lighthearted. However, Will raised his voice, expressing his disappointment and saying we'd talk about it later. Since then, he hasn't responded to my messages or come back to the hotel to speak to me. Now I'm wondering if I was really out of line. I didn't mean to be disrespectful, but I didn't expect them to be so sensitive. So, am I the a-hole? Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "Not the a-hole. I'm most bothered by your boyfriend, to be honest. His family says all this rude crap to you, and to him, that's all fine. But the big problem is you're clapping back? Seriously? He raises his voice and shuts down your attempts to tell your side and says, 'We'll talk about this later.' Does he think he has authority over you? Is that the standard in your relationship?" If it weren't for the context, I might have found his reaction humorous because he's never really been the threatening type, and I can't imagine him talking to me like that in any other situation. It felt very forced. Then user 2 commented and said, "OP, are your fiancé and his family black? If so, I can see imperialism making your quip not funny to a black family." No, they're a white American family. I'm assuming their ancestry is Anglo, but as far as I'm aware, neither he nor anyone in his family has done an ancestry test. Then user 3 commented and said, "I'm confused that they had never seen your picture. Were they surprised you were white, or was this the first time they were able to voice it? Either way, not the a-hole. Sounds like you matched their energy." They have seen me. I think they assumed I was British because we originally met while he and I were studying in England. I don't really understand this myself and currently don't have the opportunity to ask. Then user 4 said, "You're long distance, you've gone all that way specifically to visit him, and he isn't staying at the hotel with you? Unless it's one of those no sharing a room before marriage things, what's that all about? Because if there's not some specific reason, I'd say there's other problems here." When we were planning this trip, he had suggested to me that we stay with his family. I rejected this idea as I did not want to impose on his family, and I am also generally uncomfortable of the idea staying with others, hence why I booked my own hotel, which I am glad I did in hindsight. I had expected him to stay with me, but I guess he's staying with his family now. Then user 5 said, "I would give him until tomorrow before booking a flight back. Meanwhile, make plans for yourself tomorrow to enjoy New York." It's after midnight, and depending on how tomorrow, or well, today now goes, I'll probably return to New York. My departing flight is from New York anyways, and I have friends there. And I want to make this as nice a holiday as possible and enjoy the rest of the week. Then user 6 said, "Side note, I'm guessing his mom and aunt have never heard of Elon Musk or apartheid?" I have no idea. I guess not. I'm assuming they think Musk is British, just like they thought I was. Then OP provided more information in the comments section and said, "I just want to clarify that while we are in a long-distance relationship, we originally met because we studied at the same university. So it's not a case of online dating or not knowing each other well enough." Then OP provides more information in the comments section and said, "I just want to clarify that while we are in a long-distance relationship, we originally met because we studied at the same university. So it's not a case of online dating or not knowing each other well enough. As for not meeting his family, it's because the only times we've been around each other in person were during in university in England, when he visited me in Johannesburg, or when I visited him in New York. His family didn't leave Atlanta during any of these periods, and he has met my family during previous visits, and it went well." And finally, user 7 commented and said, "Their comments were also very innocuous. Why did you take offense?" While their comments may not have necessarily been intended to be rude, it becomes very exasperating listening to this for more than an hour. I didn't include it in the original post because of the limit, but they were asking me how often I see or interact with wild animals, how do I do my work if there's issues with power outages and electricity, supposed poverty and crime in SA, don't you feel much safer in America? And continuously asking me why I sounded British and not African. They said more things which I can't remember or really can't articulate at this point. After all of this, I responded with a light quip, which I don't think should have warranted the reaction it did. Update. Hi everyone, it's been a long day, and I just wanted to update you all since many of you asked what happened. After a restless night, Will called me around 9 this morning, saying he was coming to the hotel to talk. I was still angry, and last night he gave me the silent treatment after I messaged him multiple times, and now he wants to talk on his terms, but I figured we needed to sort this out. When he arrived, I didn't let him speak first. I told him how hurt I was by his actions, especially how he shut me out instead of addressing the situation. He apologized, admitting he felt insecure about his family's ignorance and behavior, and took it out on me. He promised to make it up to me, though I completely forgot to ask him why he didn't prepare them beforehand or at least tell them about me being South African. Anyway, he also mentioned that one thing about me that he struggles with is that I can be a bit too masculine, in the sense that I don't back down or admit when you're wrong or know when to stay silent. And this apparently caused problems for him last night. Me not holding my tongue with that quip was embarrassing to him as a display to his family. This links back to something he's mentioned before about how I never get too emotional or cry. He confessed last night that when he dropped me off, he was actually on the verge of tears, so he left like that. He admitted he shouldn't have and that it was wrong for him to leave me like that, especially after what had just occurred. But then he insisted I needed to apologize to his mother and aunt, and I flat out said no. But he kept pestering me, saying he didn't want his fiance's first meeting with his family to end on a bad note. He said, "Think of how this looks for me," and I eventually, albeit reluctantly, agreed. So I got ready and we headed over to his parents' place. The car ride was awkward, and he kept trying to make small talk about what happened after he dropped me off. We arrived at the house, and honestly, the feeling of dread just hit me again. His aunt was there again, and from what I gathered, she came back specifically to receive my apology. Will's sister, who was there last night, was not there, but the aunt came back just for this, which I found a bit much, but this was clearly very important to her to hear me apologize. His dad greeted me, but his mom and aunt were clearly waiting to have their say. They talked about how hurt they were by my comment, and I apologized, saying I didn't mean to offend them. I just didn't know how to respond to what they said last night, and made a joke that wasn't meant to be disrespectful. But they couldn't leave it at that. They started lecturing me about how I was poorly raised in South Africa for speaking to elders like that, calling me ill-mannered. That's when I'd had enough, and I turned away from them, and they freaked out. I walked away as they continued ranting. Will tried to grab my arm and tell me I wasn't acting properly, but I pulled away and he let go. I walked out of their home and they all followed me, his mom and aunt loudly commenting and Will trying to talk to me. His father just stood there on the veranda watching the whole scene unfold. It was probably the most embarrassing moment of my life, and I felt like their neighbors would come out to see what all the fuss was about. I asked Will to drive me back to the hotel, but he refused and kept lecturing me. So I called an Uber. Waiting for it was incredibly awkward, with all of them continuing to go on. I eventually got back to the hotel, immediately canceled my flight back to New York with him, and booked a later flight for myself. I checked out of the hotel and waited at the airport until my flight. Now I'm with my friend in New York. Will has been messaging me non-stop since, so I blocked him on everything, and he'll probably continue to annoy me on all social media and love bomb me when I get back to Johannesburg, but I will deal with it then. Oh, and I left my thermos, which is sentimental to me because it has a lot of stickers that I've collected over the years at his flat, which he's most likely not going to return to me, but oh well. On a brighter note, I'm planning to enjoy the rest of my holiday with my friend in New York, and thanks to everyone for your comments and messages, and a special thanks to the user who recommended restaurants in New York City. My friend also read my post and agreed with those of you who were skeptical about long-distance relationships. She'd wanted to tell me her concerns for a very long time, but thanks again everyone. I really appreciate the support, advice, and sweet messages. Then in the comments section, one user said, "You chose well, OP. His lack of spine is obvious, and he has no idea how much resilience and fight resides in a South African." I was just blindsided by our connection in university. It's still going to sting at the amount of time I invested into this, though. Oh boy, this story. Sorry, OP, you're just too masculine in the way that you defend yourself and won't shut up when I ask you to. God. I don't know if the ex-boyfriend was like a mama's boy or anything specifically, but you could tell he didn't have a spine, and he was like, well, think about how this looks on me. Think about how this looks on your relationship. Think about how you look to your partner. And when OP said, yes, I'm going to apologize, albeit reluctantly, I was like, oh no, that never goes good. And it rarely happens in these particular types of stories with these particular types of crazy people. So when she went to apologize, it just wasn't enough, and they had to lecture her, and they were like, why aren't you black? Where's your African accent? Why aren't you dressed in traditional African clothing? Here, we bought you some. And then they give her a poncho and sombrero because they don't know what they're talking about. But you know what? It doesn't matter anymore, because that's her past headache. She has berid herself of these people, and now she's in New York City, and she can take in all the smells. All of them. Anyway, next story. Story number 14. Getting married and mother-in-law is upset because we have to find a restaurant with gluten-free options for the rehearsal dinner. I'm literally the bride. So, I am getting married and I have an insane mother-in-law. Like, got kicked out of hospitals for abusing her cancer doctor crazy. And she always complains about having to go to a restaurant that has gluten-free options that aren't a salad. She's paying for the rehearsal dinner, and we gave her a long list of places where there's gluten-free options, all in a good price range. Well, she doesn't even know any of the restaurants where I live. Not a single one except the list we gave her. She bickered to my fiance about it so badly that he straight up said he wouldn't invite her if she kept doing these kinds of things to me. So bravo to him. She always makes sure, literally tells it to my face, that I am a huge inconvenience. Update. My friends and family decided if she makes us go somewhere that I can't eat, we're all going to get drinks somewhere and hang out. Everyone is on board and happy to make sure she doesn't come near me during the wedding. I'm not going to let a narcissist ruin our wedding, and my friends are on board to keep her away. I will say hello and goodbye, but if she tries to say anything more, I'm going to walk away and talk to somebody else. If she makes a scene at my wedding, well, I'll watch her make a fool of herself and embarrass herself in front of everyone and enjoy the show, because no one is ever on her side because of the way she acts. Thank you for the support, validation, and kindness. You guys are amazing. Small update. Getting married and mother-in-law is upset because we have to find a restaurant with gluten-free options for the rehearsal dinner. I'm literally the bride. New update. Well, the situation has been fixed, but I think I almost gave my mother-in-law a stroke. She got a lot more controlling than just the restaurant. Surprise, surprise. First, she called me and screamed that no one in her family can eat at the restaurant that we chose, that they all looked at the menu and said they all want pizza, somewhere I've been glutened before, and she said, no one in my entire family can eat there. Everyone will be sick. They all hate it. By the way, not giving a crap about my family, so I decided to call each and every one of her family members that are coming to the rehearsal and asked if they were fine with eating what we picked. Turns out, the mother-in-law called everyone trying to get them to agree with her about getting pizza. They all said that they wanted the place that we picked, and half of them couldn't even eat pizza, so she just flat out lied, and just really wanted pizza. She even started inviting and uninviting whoever she wanted. She was cutting people out of the dinner who actually ate participating in the rehearsal and adding people in who aren't. Well, she called me 2 weeks ago and snapped and said, we're getting pizza and you have no choice. So I told her, I'm paying for the rehearsal now, not you. We're going to where we want, you can go get pizza. And this B word, this 76-year-old woman responded by screaming. She didn't scream no or any actual words, she just screamed at the top of her lungs. I hung up on her and blocked her number. My SO has been amazing though, and that night he sent her a text telling her that she is no longer any part of the rehearsal or wedding planning, and he's been ignoring her messages since. Obviously checking for emergencies, but it's just her saying mean crap to him, and I'm so glad to live 350 miles away from this psycho. I just wanted to eat. What in the F? Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, in some locales, you can call the police non-emergency line or drop into the local station and ask about hiring an off-duty officer, in uniform if you wish, to provide security presence at a wedding and reception. And be sure to say they'll get free food too. They may refer to you to their local FOP, but young officers are always looking to pick up the odd security job here and there and get some extra pay. Their presence tends to have a calming effect on troublemakers. Good luck and best wishes. Oh, this is so good to know. I F you not, my entire family is ready to kick her out physically, but I don't want them to have to spoil their time. An officer would be better, and damn, it will be funny when she makes a scene. Then user 2 commented and said, "You were the bride with a serious food sensitivity, but everyone will be sick if they eat there," was all she had to say? I guess the everyone didn't include you, the bride. I hope you enjoy your reception and wedding day. And at this point, I would run off and get married on the sly and have a reception and wedding sometime in the future if and when your controlling mother-in-law comes to her senses.
Well, I've always wanted a traditional wedding since I was a little girl, but even she made me want to just elope. But I'm not going to let some old mad woman ruin that. I will grab my popcorn and watch her make a fool of herself. No one is going to see her freak out and go, "It's the bride's fault."
And finally, user 3 commented and said, "It sounds like she was not paying for the rehearsal dinner out of kindness, but rather some sort of weird power play as the mother-in-law. Good for you for putting your foot down. We have not seen my husband's mother since our wedding day 13 years ago because she had a history of abuse, narcissism, and lying, and she pulled some toxic crap at the reception. Sometimes, cutting people out of your life is the smart choice."
She wanted to pay for it because my family is paying for the wedding, and anytime my family does something nice, she has to try and compete. For example, my family brought my fiancé on a trip for free for 2 weeks. All my mother-in-law did was call my fiancé to complain and talk crap about my family.
So, I did not know that you could just straight up hire a police officer in some districts or parts of the country and be like, "Hey, can you make sure people don't get crazy at my wedding and also grab a plate?" Go ahead. I might need to do that. Not really. I don't have any crazy people in my life. I can proudly say that 9 out of 10 of these stories, maybe 95%, I do not relate to these stories. I just don't have drama in my life. And at times, I'm kind of jealous because I want to react to drama. I want some juicy details. I want the tea, as the people say, but it's just boring and calm and peaceful. Ugh. I know. I'm joking. Anyway, next story.
Story number 15. Am I, 23F, the a-hole for asking my partner 27M to tell his friends to leave a house party? I will try to be concise. The party was originally planned as a housewarming party, but my friends couldn't make it, so it was just my partner's friends who were coming. The guests got here at 6 p.m., and I provided all of the food, drink, and I worked hard on making the lounge a comfortable environment and sourcing plenty of seats. For context, I work night shifts, and in the last 48 hours, I've worked a night shift and had one nap between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. on the day of the party. Bearing in mind, I went straight from my night shift to the store to buy all of the supplies. Fast forward to now, and it's 1 a.m., and I figured it's been a fair while. Everyone had a blast, and I think it's time to call it a night. I asked my partner in private, who responded with, "I can't kick them out. Do you know how bad that would be for me?" Now, I support him, and I know how it feels to be insecure around your friends if you don't see them often, especially as adults. So I let it slide and I waited. But it's now 2:30 a.m. and my partner has ordered more food, which means they will be staying for even longer. And I'm at the end of my tether now, running on 2 hours of sleep. Having put in all the effort, and just to add insult to injury, none of the guests thanked me, greeted me, or appreciated the work I put in. I then learned that they had been taking coke in my bathroom, and now I am so upset. And my partner sees no problem and is getting upset with me now. Am I the a-hole? Update. Thanks everyone for helping me come to my senses. It was happening live, so I couldn't reply to everyone, but I had gone through to bed around 11 p.m. But with the way our home is laid out, there's not a lot of soundproofing from the main area to the bedroom. I'm not precious. I am quite capable of sleeping if there isn't mountains of noise. At 3:45 a.m., I flipped and I went through and I kicked them out. Not very graciously, but I think I'm allowed a crazy moment given I had no sleep, and my partner said that I embarrassed him and interrupted their fun game. So, my partner will be moving out in the coming weeks. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, so if you come to my house and start doing coke, then you gotta go, okay? This is a Pepsi house. That was a terrible joke. But seriously, if you come to my crib and start injecting or snorting and going, "Ugh," I'm like, hey, could you get the hell out? I don't know what was going on in that relationship. I don't know exactly beyond the coke what was going on in that house, but you know, they didn't even say hello. They didn't greet her. All her friends flaked on her. So, I mean, some housewarming party and she broke up with her boyfriend. What a horrible party. Anyway, next story.
Story number 16. 6 months postpartum, my 27F fiancé tells me that he, 26M, loves me less.
How do I navigate emotionally as a single parent? As the title says, I, 27F, am 6 months postpartum with my beautiful son, my first and only, and I've been with my fiance, 26M, going on 6 years, and I'm shattered. When I was pregnant, I started to notice my fiance withdrawing from me emotionally and physically. For my birthday, 1 week before our son was born, he got me a Starbucks gift card for $25. That was the gift. For Mother's Day, he handed me a dead bouquet of flowers that he left in the garage overnight without water, and a card that should have been made out to his own mother, not the mother of his child. We've had a dead bedroom since my pregnancy. I've communicated to him many times that I'd like for us to work on that. Of course, parents of newborns sometimes go through a roommate phase, and I would communicate with him that I'm ready to get back to it. But to no avail. He continues to lay in bed watching TikToks while I get our son down for bed, and that's that. Last night, I finally pushed for more direct communication around this feeling. Why is he no longer interested in intimacy? And after he skirted around some excuses, he finally tells me, I think you love me more than I love you. And he explained that there are levels to love, and that maybe we are just on different levels. And I asked him, has it always been that way? To which he replies, I guess I just love you less now. And to say I'm shattered is kind of an understatement. If we're being honest, I saw it coming. I could feel it. I've spent my pregnancy in the last 6 months being the sole provider, especially financially, for our child. I juggle our baby while working from home. I do it all while my fiance is out of town for work most of the time. He says infidelity isn't a part of this, but who knows? Our relationship was never like this before our son. Even though it's not necessarily my fault, I feel like I already failed as a mother and wonder what my son will think as he gets older. My fiance stated that he's hopeful we work through this, but I said I'm sorry. I can't just make you love me more. What's been said can't be unsaid, you know? So, 6 months postpartum, and I'm about to be a single mom at 27. Now, here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, why do you think you failed your son? You are an amazing mom who is engaged to a deadbeat father and a crappy partner. I think the heaviness is that I picked the wrong partner. Now seeing how things played out, I never would have been engaged or had a child if I had known he'd change with becoming a parent. Then user 2 commented and said, OP, was the pregnancy planned? It was unexpected, but he was all for it when we found out. Then user 3 said, OP, you said that you feel like you already failed as a mother. The only way you would have failed as a mother in this case is if you didn't try to address the problem with the child's father. You aren't responsible for what other people do or say. You are responsible only for what you do and say. Here's some questions you could ask him. How does he plan to work this out? I mean, I'm not even in your situation, and I could name a few things off the top of my head. Spending more alone time together, have someone babysit by going on dates, be more involved in listening to talk about your life besides mother talk, speak to a therapist, etc. If he did want to work things out, then how come he made no actions or effort and remained passive until you brought it up? I mean, I can't say I want to be a professional sports player and then expect any good results while not practicing. Hey there, thank you for your reply. I do make an effort to plan a date night here and there. Thankfully, my mom gladly watches our son so we can do that. But it's not really quality time. He's always on his phone, taking calls for work, and his dad, whom he works with. I think he was fine with complacency. He lives with me rent-free. I'm financially supporting our son mostly by myself. I never expected this to be the dynamic, he just doesn't step up. And he owns his own business but puts all of the money back into it. Always complains about being broke, etc. He's basically getting a free ride, so I imagine he wouldn't want to bring it up. Then user 4 commented and said, why are you letting him live rent-free? He needs to help you and your son financially. We live with my mother, who doesn't charge him or us rent. We live in a high cost of living area and weren't living together when I initially became pregnant. Then user 5 said, he works for his dad, lives rent-free with you covering all the bills, and yet he's 1, out of town for work, and 2, always broke? This does not add up. Literally, is his dad not paying him? So, he owns the company and his dad works with them. They blow money on equipment for the business, hotels, for travel, etc. They blow money before it even hits their account, honestly. And finally, user 6 commented and said, if your partner works out of town, then why are you the sole provider financially for your child? Does he do any hands-on parenting at all? Spend any time with the baby? Loving you less is quite a vague position. I could hypothesize a number of reasons why he may feel an emotional shift. Some people find that the arrival of a child causes them to view their partner as a mother and not an object of sexual desire. If he wants to work through it, couples counseling could assist, maybe.
He supposedly puts all and any profit back into the business, but I know for a fact profits are low because he and his dad blow the money on equipment, etc. Also, he's not that hands-on. I have to basically ask him to babysit so I can take a bath or a shower. He just props our son in a baby chair and sits on his phone. It's pathetic. And I'm not sure couples counseling would be good for me. I'm pretty checked out mentally and emotionally now that he told me that he loves me less. If I'm honest, I don't think it can be repaired. Update. First, I want to thank everyone who commented on my original post. I mostly posted to vent, and I'm really glad I did. Now for the update. I decided to rip the band-aid off and end things. Engagement is ended. Relationship is ended. All of it. After dinner, our son was taking a nap and I asked my fiancé 26M when he planned on moving out. Long story short, I had him pack a bag and stay elsewhere tonight. He will start packing his belongings tomorrow. I realized that I can't do this. I can't forgive being told that he loves me less. That's not the example or standard I want to set for my child as he grows. Love isn't something you need to beg for, work for, or pretend. To make it worse, I asked my fiancé if he felt this way when he got engaged last August, to which he said, "Yes. I've just been lying to myself." This man had a baby with me and knew, possibly beforehand, that his heart wasn't in it, but didn't have the guts to tell me. So, here we are, 6 years down the drain. I'm not sure if the reality of a child hit him, if infidelity is involved on his part, or if he lost attraction to me in the process of being pregnant. Could be all of the above, but I'll never know, and that's okay. I'm the primary provider for our son, and that won't change. Our son, who is 6 months old, will remain living with me full-time, and fiancé is welcome to visit his child. We will work out an agreement to ensure he fulfills his financial obligation to our child, and I'm not afraid to pursue the legal route if needed. I'm 6 months postpartum, and this is my first. And wow, it's been hard. But now I'm officially doing it solo, and with the help of my mom, and I'm going to do the damn thing, and I'm going to do my best. So wish me luck. Thank you to everyone for the words of encouragement.
So is her ex-fiancé like stupid or something? He does not know how to run a business, it seems, or just doesn't know how to take profits. Like, something's going on there. I mean, ultimately, I think the best unfortunate outcome here is for her to be a single parent, because that guy, he's just a leech. He's just weight that, OP needs to cut off. But like, what's going on in his head? He probably wasn't even interested before the pregnancy, or I mean, he wasn't interested before the wedding and the pregnancy. Like, what's going on there, buddy? Use your words. You could have prevented this. Even if you don't care about your partner, I'm just saying you can save yourself some time if you just said a couple of words and said, "Hey, can we talk? Because I'm not really feeling it right now." And then you can go back to your failing business and cheat or not cheat and not take profit and go out of town and then just let her pay for everything. I don't know. The more info we got, the more I just didn't like what was going on here. But ultimately, OP's free. She's got her mom helping her out. She lives rent-free. She can take care of her kid. And I guess she makes good money if she was the sole provider that whole time. So anyway, next story. Story number 17. Am I the a-hole for laughing in my sister-in-law's face when she DNA tested my daughter? I, 30M, have a daughter who is 6 years old. I am not biologically related to her at all. There is no blood relation between us. I was friends with her mother for most of all of my childhood. We were never involved romantically and were always just friends. She had her daughter at 23 with her 25-year-old husband. When my daughter was a newborn, almost 3 months technically, both her mother and father were killed. I won't go into too much detail for privacy reasons, but it was a workplace shooting. My friend and her husband had worked in the same building and were both killed. Both my friend and her husband had grown up with less than ideal families and didn't have any siblings, so there wasn't any next of kin for their daughter to go to. However, because I was close with them, I was able to adopt her. Even though I had been iffy about the idea of kids, I didn't want their daughter to grow up in foster care or around people who didn't have a connection to her biological parents, so I stepped in. My parents and siblings know that my daughter is not actually my daughter biologically speaking. My daughter, I'll call her Lily for the post, also knows that she's adopted. I never really hid the fact that she was adopted. She knows her parents are dead and were killed by a bad man, but I'm saving the details for when she's older. Lily does not like me at all. She looks exactly like her mother and biological dad, and most people assume that I'm her biological father and that she just took after her mom. I don't ever really correct this when and if people assume this because it just seems unnecessary. My brother has been with his fiancée for about
about 2 years now. A few weeks ago, we were all meeting up at my parents' house, and my sister-in-law saw an old picture of me, my friend, and her husband. She pointed to my friend and asked who she was, and I explained that was Lily's mother. Sister-in-law got quiet and stood in front of the picture for a while. I didn't think much of it. To clarify, she knows my dead friend, but I guess didn't know that she had been married or that Lily is not my biological daughter, and I suppose she assumed my daughter was mine and my friend's biological daughter. Well, my sister-in-law got a DNA test done on my daughter behind my back. She used my brother's DNA for the test, and when it came back that they weren't related, she knew that meant me and Lily weren't related. She came up to me with the results and waved them in my face, saying that I was taking care of a dead woman's affair baby. She said this to me in front of my daughter, and I just stared at her for a while before bursting out laughing at this. I told her I knew Lily wasn't my biological daughter and that this thing called adoption exists, and her face went red and she stormed off. My brother is mad that I embarrassed his fiance, but I said she embarrassed herself by DNA testing a kid that isn't hers and then parading the results up to me. What did she want me to do? What was her goal with this? Did she want me to break down and abandon my daughter? My brother said she thought she was doing the right thing and called me an a-hole. Well, I don't feel like the a-hole, especially considering my sister-in-law was the one who stuck her nose where it doesn't belong. And now I'm asking Reddit for opinions, mostly just for validation. But was I the a-hole? Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said,
Did the brother's fiance assume OP was married to the deceased friend?
I can see how she assumed that we were together. In the picture, I had my arm around her shoulders. This was before my friend was married to her husband, and at the time of that picture was taken, they were just friends. Then user 2 commented and said,
I think you're a hero. I'm proud of you. If anything ever happens to me, I know my daughter will be so loved and cared for and raised in a loving household. I hope somehow your friend and Lily's daddy are resting peacefully knowing she's got a papa that loves her. Now, I'm going back to cutting onions.
I appreciate that a lot. I'm doing my best to raise Lily with the values and beliefs that her mother and biological dad had and wanted to raise her with, even if some of them differ a bit from my own. Then user 3 commented and said,
OP, do you know what kind of DNA test that your sister-in-law took for your daughter?
I believe they were doing one of those home DNA kits, though I don't know what company they did it through. And finally, user 4 commented and said,
Not the a-hole. She wanted to stir some crap up, and that's a hell of a lot of effort to help. Also, I'd be pissed about how she got Lily's DNA to do this. And it didn't go the way she thought it would, so she got mad. Your brother is just trying to side with his soon-to-be wife.
Update. So, my sister-in-law ended up coming to my house and apologizing, as well as telling me the full story. My brother put her up to the DNA test. When I first adopted Lily, my brother for some reason believed that Lily was my biological daughter. He thought that me and Lily's mom were together and just weren't telling anyone. He believes that when she got pregnant, Lily's mom told me that Lily was mine and that she was just going to say that it was her husband's, and I went along with it because I didn't really want kids. Sister-in-law was under the impression I believed I was Lily's biological dad. She saw the picture of Lily's mom and I, and after asking for some clarification on who she was, assumed we were together in it, and then got suspicious when she saw that the other guy in the picture, Lily's actual biological dad, looked a lot like Lily. I also want to clarify I didn't tell her that Lily's biological dad was in the picture because she had specifically pointed to Lily's mom, and I assumed she knew that Lily was adopted. I didn't know my brother had been telling her lies for nearly 2 years. She got the DNA test done out of her own suspicions, and my brother helped her with it because he thought it would reveal that I was actually Lily's biological dad. He manipulated her into thinking it would clear the air of suspicion when really he was just trying to prove that I was really Lily's biological father and lying about the reasons for adoption. Well, of course, the results I provided, I wasn't Lily's biological dad and that my brother was wrong. My brother felt too embarrassed to confess to his fiance that he had lied about the circumstances, which is why sister-in-law confronted me with the results. My sister-in-law also apologized for showing the results in front of my daughter, and she told me that her mom had an affair and cheated on her father, got pregnant with another man's kid, and had let her father believe that the kid was his. Her father was devastated by this when he found out, and she grew up very resentful of women who do that to their spouses. She wanted to sit me down and talk to me about it without my daughter, but when she saw me with my daughter, she got angry, thinking I was being led on to believe I was raising my daughter when I was actually raising another man's kid, and she ended up exploding and immediately waved the results in my face. My sister-in-law does feel very guilty, and she's angry at my brother for lying to her. I'm not angry at her for doing the test, because she thought she was doing the right thing. I also forgave her for the way she told me about the results, because clearly affairs are a sensitive subject for her, and I can understand why she would have exploded like that. I'm pretty sure she plans to break up with my brother now, and I don't blame her. When I called and asked my brother about this, he admitted it. When I asked why he would think this, he said that he couldn't think of a reason why a man who had been against having kids at this time would willingly adopt a baby without having a blood connection to it. He told sister-in-law that I was Lily's biological dad and was aware of the fact. He took it a step further and said that me and Lily's mom were together at the time of Lily's conception. Both me and my parents are going low contact with my brother for a while now, and I know I will forgive my brother eventually, but I can't do that right now. He believed I was low enough to have an affair with a married woman, get her pregnant, take no responsibility, allow her to pass off the kid as another man's, and then only take responsibility because her mom died. Then in the comments section, Opie elaborated on how Lily is handling all of this, and is she mad at her uncle and fiance? Lily was confused, and I had to explain to her what sister-in-law had said in terms that she would understand. She was angry sister-in-law would think that low of her mom, and I had to explain that she's been lied to and didn't think that anymore. She's not mad at sister-in-law anymore, but doesn't ever want to talk to her uncle again. Then Opie elaborated on fatherhood since adopting Lily and said, "Oh yes, I can admit that I'm definitely a lot softer since becoming a father. Adopting my daughter made me have to finally be mature, something I wasn't in my 20s when I adopted her." Then one user commented and said,
Both your brother-in-law and sister-in-law are getting off way too lightly. He butted into your family and lied to his wife. And, sensitive issue or not, she still violated your daughter's privacy, then called her an affair child right in front of her.
And finally, user 2 commented and said,
Your brother said that he couldn't think of a single reason why a man who had been against having kids at the time would willingly adopt a baby without having a blood connection to it. Oh boy, your brother is really showing his whole ass here. Your brother was a terrible sibling and partner, and he riled up his fiancée based on her trauma in order to enlist her to help in deceiving you. Awful.
I really want to stress this point. Took the words right out of my mouth. I'm not mad at my sister-in-law because I know she was manipulated into doing this by my brother. I wish more people would understand that. Okay, so I'm gonna roll around in the mud here and be in that 20% of 80-20 when it comes to being a good person and say, oh look, another story of a person who didn't want kids initially and changed their mind. It's almost like people can change their mind.
I'm still slightly peeved about that, only slightly, but to get back to being a good person 80% of the time,
OP is awesome for stepping up for Lily. You know, he didn't have to do that,
but he wanted to.
And like that one commenter said, he really is a hero for doing that, just to give Lily some sense of familiarity. Even if Lily doesn't like him very much, unfortunately, he didn't elaborate much on how that dynamic plays out, but hopefully down the line she recognizes what he did and how he stepped up. But as for the brother and the sister-in-law, yeah, the sister-in-law still did something really bad, like DNA testing a child behind OP's back. I don't even know how she did that. I can understand why. She was lied to and deceived and manipulated, and her fiancé, the OP's brother, used her trauma against her and weaponized it for his own evil plan. So I don't approve of what she did, and if I was in OP's shoes, I would be kind of mad, but I can understand why. But the anger really needs to go towards the brother because, like, bro, you think I would bang this woman, leave her, and then lie to this dude? Like, you know, the implications that those have, like, really speaks to someone's character. Like, you think I would do all those awful things? Bro, that's me, bro. What's wrong, man? All right, you're not invited to the next Mario Kart session.
Gross. I hate my imaginary brother now.
But anyway, guys, we're at the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a really good day, and bye-bye.